Take care of my knee. I also want longevity in my career, and you know, I want to play as long as I can. So I think after that, I had to sit down and kind of make the decision. And she's the leader. She's the one, you know, walking out in front of everyone, and the one that people are turning to and looking to in moments to, you know, guide them and give them that confidence. And I think Mido, it speaks for itself. The player that she is, the character she brings. She gives the team that fire and that oomph, and like you said, very experienced players.
There's a huge demand. We try and make it as inclusive as possible. I thought they looked solid, and I think a lot of players are on top form, so I am kind of confident.
Who are the fans that who are most rowdy?
Well, I would say the Irish.
Hello there, how are you? It's Euros week, baby. Welcome to the Kickback, sponsored by LG. It's an all-in pledge campaign. It's really good to be with you. You can show your commitment to the Lionesses and Red Roses this summer. Watching changes everything. Head to lg.com/UK/pledge for more information. Shaban with you without the evil twin sister, Rusha. She's playing in the US for international break. Coming up for you on the show today, we speak exclusively to one of the England heroes of Euro 2022, Miss Millie Bright, about the Lionesses' chances this summer. Plus, Shiv Wilson is in the hot seat today. She joins me to discuss her recent decision to retire from football, what's next for her, and review England against Jamaica. And where you can watch the Euros this summer. Where are you going to do it? Well, Baller FC will host watch parties for every Lionesses game across the tournament, and they'll be here to tell us all about that as well. So stay tuned for that, and much, much more on the way. Get in the comments, be kind, like, subscribe, get across socials. We are with you all the way now through the Euros. And Shiv Wilson is with us today. Hi!
Hi!
This is nice.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here.
Very
I'm going to say it before anyone else says it in the comments. She's a babe!
Thanks, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I get that a lot. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Good.
All good. Are you, like, I know we're going to go into it in more detail, but are you ready for another version of the Euros?
Yeah, yeah.
Euros changed everything.
No, 100%. I think it changed the, what's the word I'm looking for, trajectory of women's football for the good, for the better.
For the good, the better. And they say this one's going to be bigger and better again. It's just a shame it's not on our doorstep here.
Yeah.
But Switzerland need that too. They
No,
need the love
100%.
too. They
Yeah.
absolutely do.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with you, because you're on a bit of a chill time at the minute, because you've just retired, what, 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that, I don't know.
How's it going?
Oh, I'm chilling, living my best life. Just got back from Dubai. And yeah, I'm just really just taking my time and just trying to, not kind of figure out what's next, but just transition smoothly into what I want to do next. So, yeah.
Have you had that, like FOMO yet?
No.
From football, no?
No, not at all. I mean, I feel like when the season starts, I might, you know, feel like, oh my God, I miss it a bit. But like, I was talking to one of the girls at Birmingham the other day, and they were saying that they're back in pre-season this week, and I thought, I couldn't think of anything worse. Yeah. So that's how I know I'm just ready to just chill.
Well, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, the summer's just starting, the Euros getting underway, and you guys are back into it. Like, it's a lot when you need that
100%.
brain break. But you played for Charlton, Palace, Birmingham, most recently Southampton. I mean, how's things looking at Southampton? Is it on the journey in women's football? It seems like it's doing the right things and making the right noises.
Yeah, like it's got one of the best setups I've seen in terms of women's football. You know, they're at the men's training ground. They've got their own pitch. Like, the setup is great. And yeah, I just think, obviously it was unfortunate that when I was there, I think Remy was the manager there. So I didn't really get to work with her for too long. But even with that being said, you can see that it's heading in the right direction. So
Good, good. So you're absolutely on the couch for now. But what's the plan then moving forward? Because, like, social media is a big part of how we're getting to know you in more detail.
Yeah. Do you know what? Like, I'm just kind of, like, I really like doing stuff like this, just like sitting and having just chats and like people are like, oh, do you want to go into punditry? I'm like, no, that's too serious. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I've got to like read off a script and that, like, nah. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to actually be myself and stuff like that. So yeah, doing things like this, like podcasts, hopefully want to start my own soon. And yeah, kind of just see where things go, like be an actual influencer finally, so.
And that's something we were discussing off air as well, is that you very much so enjoy being yourself. I think you and Risha have like a kindred spirit thing there, because it's hard to completely be yourself when you're representing a club and somebody wants you to be representing a certain way.
100%. I just feel like, from my experience, I feel like if you've got a following, so to speak, or if you're quite outspoken on your social media, like, football doesn't really like that. And they try and not, I would say, like, subconsciously control you a little bit. Obviously, I don't want to talk too much, but yeah, that's the best way I can explain it.
Okay. What, you got the impression it was like, if you could do less on social media, we'd appreciate that?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, what I say on my TikTok, for example, or what I say on my social media, they can't control that. So it just felt to me that I was being controlled in aspects within football, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've heard it before, to be honest. You know, especially that's the thing with women's football, Shiv. Like, you've to be this, not just an amazing role model for the football that you play and breaking barriers in football, it's then like you have to fit the brand model as well.
Exactly.
You know, and that might not be for everyone.
Yeah, because it's like with my social media, I'm very much like, I'll just say what I feel like saying and I'm 100% myself. But again, when you're representing a brand or a club, you have to be very wary of what you say, because that's tied into the name of whoever you're playing for, and whoever's, you know, running that may not agree with your views and vice versa. So you just have to be very careful.
This is the thing, like, football, from what we knew in the past, it's all about characters, big personalities. They are trying to strip that away slightly. So it's like, you could be the best footballer and fair play to you, right? Because you're flourishing, because you're good at football. You don't have to have an opinion, maybe. But then you might not be bon mati kind of thing on the pitch, but you're still being yourself. It's like that, if you strip that away from people, you'll take away the person that they are, therefore they won't perform the way that they usually perform. Like, I don't get how that's not obvious to see.
Yeah, well, from my experience anyway, I need to be in an environment where I feel like I can be myself, because that way you're going to get the best out of me on the pitch. Like, if I feel like I'm not comfortable in the environment that I'm in, I'm not going to be enjoying my football, and you're not going to get the best version of me. Okay. But I do think, if we look at women's football and compared to men, I feel like a lot of female footballers are trying to like build their own brand, because obviously we don't make money like the men do. So we kind of have to do something else alongside of it. And in order to do that, we kind of need to build a fan base away from football, which means building a brand, showing your personality a bit more. And like I said, men don't have to do that because they're chilling for the rest of their life, whereas we can't do that.
A lot of men are not just then chilling, their families are chilling. You know, the mum and dad live next door in the house next door. Like, you know, it's all kind of, and that, I don't ever think I want women's football to become that either, like that kind of wealth that's almost ridiculous. But you do have to make ends meet. Like, I know a number of players who play, say, in the Championship or below, who are striving and love football, and they feel they're getting that opportunity, but they still have jobs. Yeah. They're still trying to get degrees so that when football finishes, they can get another job. So at the moment, you're securing your future through doing what you're doing. And then if someone tries to take that away from you...
Exactly.
Oh, honey, I'm golfing one.
But this is what I mean. I look at... Obviously, I'm in a fortunate position because I've built what I've built away from football over the past 3 or 4 years. So I was in a position where I could have left at any given point. But then I do look at a lot of girls who play football and I'm like, if you wanted to retire tomorrow, what are you going to do? And that is, again, the unfortunate reality of women's football. Like, with men's football, you make enough money where you can fly your mum out to come watch your game. You can fly your friends out to come see you. Like, you have the financial freedom to do that. Whereas if you're a woman playing football, again, you've got to move to wherever you're playing to. You're isolated from your friends and family. You've got to move to wherever you're playing. And you don't have the luxury of being able to get your mum a car for 2 or 3 hours to come see your game. It's too expensive. Do you know what I mean? We don't get paid enough to do that. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. It's conversations we've had. Rush sitting in this chair before. And it's also, I always think, does Russia just like fight the system all the time? Now you're saying, I'm like, okay, go. I'm assured it's not just her. Also, talk to me about where football started for you then, Shiv. Like, go back to the beginning. Where did it all begin?
We're going back like 25 plus years here. Well, my dad actually used to play himself, but it was never a thing where he forced me to play football. But he always used to say to me, oh, when you was like 2 or 3, I knew you was going to be a footballer because you actually kicked the ball properly. You didn't kick it with your big toes, you know what I mean? So played for Enfield Town growing up, then I went to Spurs, and then I went to America for a couple of years. Come back, played in Spain for a year, played in Italy for 6 months, and then, was back in England. So I've been all over the place.
And you look back on your career and love it?
Yeah, I'm like, to be fair, like when I was thinking about retiring, one of the main things that was in my head was, if I look back on my career and, analyse what I've done, would I be happy with that? And I was just like, yeah, alongside of building what I've built away from football, would I have wanted to, I don't know, played in a major tournament with Jamaica or something? Yeah, of course, but to have done what I've done and built the following that I have, etc., I'll take it. So I'm not really mad at that.
Good.
Yeah.
And playing for Jamaica, tell us about that experience playing for a country like Jamaica, because when we see them at major tournament experience, it looks like the best crack ever.
Oh, it's vibes, pure vibes. It's a great time, genuinely. It's one of them where, obviously, let's not beat around the bush. It's not in the place where it should be yet. It's a lot better than what it was a couple of years ago. Before I had my ACL surgery, again, it wasn't in the best position. And then a couple of years later, after I came back, things had gotten better, but there's still such a long way to go.
Yeah, there was that big story, wasn't there, around the Federation?
Yeah.
What was that making you pay for travel? Is that something like
No,
that?
I think, obviously, when you play in the World Cup, obviously FIFA pay the federations, don't they?
Yes.
And then the federations pay the players, and the federation never paid the players.
They never paid them?
No. And I think there's still, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know 100%, but there's some things going on with that, I'm not sure. And the federation paying and stuff, yeah.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's the other discussion that I don't think we have all too much as well, is that women get paid for representing the national team kind of thing. There's a payment there for them. So
yeah, I think the last camp I went on was in February, maybe, to Peru. I ain't been paid for that. I'm still waiting. Whether I'll get it or not, I don't know, but yeah.
When was that? February
or March, or something like that. Or maybe end of Jan, don't know. It was a couple months ago anyway, around that time.
Yeah. Don't hold your breath, Shiv.
Yeah, honestly. That's what I mean. I really enjoyed playing for Jamaica because, again, it was just vibes and it genuinely felt like a holiday. I was like, I'm just going on holiday, So.
I love that. I love it. Speaking of which, shall we go to last night's result? Because what did you make? What did you make of that?
I mean, I don't think, obviously, the usual starting 11 wasn't playing, but again, Jamaica are playing against one of the best teams in the world, so, and I'm always gonna back my girls, so yeah, it wasn't, I'm not gonna lie, I probably watched 60 minutes of it, didn't watch the full thing, but yeah, obviously we just couldn't really get the ball at all. It was, we were just ball chasing the whole game, so.
It's a statement win. I mean, obviously you have an affiliation with England, I would say, as well, Shiv.
Yeah.
I take it you're on that bandwagon for the Euros?
Yeah, I mean, because I can't support Jamaica, can I? So,
yes, it's true.
I've got to, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with the Lioness. I feel that they're going to win the Euros again.
Yeah.
I feel it's a time again. I know we can't see past Spain. We'll talk about what's happened to Bonmati very shortly. But I don't know, I feel that there's everything that's happened, there's been a lot of drama, hasn't there?
Oh, mad drama.
Mad drama.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Here for it, though.
But I also feel that sometimes that can bring a squad together more.
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like it could work it could either go one way or the other, right? Like, it could have a negative effect on the team, or, like you said, it could bring the team together. But, yeah, I think, you know, with England's previous win with the Euros, again, there's naturally gonna be that pressure, right? But from what I've seen, they look pretty decent. So I can't see them not getting far in the tournament.
The squad is a joke.
That's what I mean.
It's like, where do you find a weak point?
Yeah.
You know, it's such a stacked squad. So we will wait and see. Euros ahead of you this week. We will keep posted. You're across it all with us here on the Kickback. And you can let us know in the comments if you think England were going to do it again. But I mean, that performance last night was a classic statement win for England. What they need going into a major tournament. Can I ask you about Bunny Shaw? Do you have a relationship with Bunny?
Yeah.
How is she?
She's just chill. Like, literally just chill. She's just cool, man. Genuinely. Like, we have, she's funny as well. Like, we have like a lot of, not deep conversations, but you can talk to her on a level. So yeah, she's a good friend of mine.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Ridiculous footballer as well. Like, I remember the first ever camp that I went into. This was years ago. And I remember, I think we were doing like I think it was attack versus defence or something. Literally, her first touch of the ball, she megged me on the first, like literally within like 10 minutes of my first session. I thought, all right, cool. This is what we're doing. All right, cool. So yeah, she's absolute joke though, absolute joke.
Do you ever have the conversations with her about social media? Because obviously it's a big part of where you are at the minute in your space. And for her, what happened to her, the abuse she received, like, does she deal with that better now? Is she still struggling with that a bit?
To be fair, I think, when did that happen? Was it?
Not long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I don't think I actually spoke to her directly about it, but again, I think it's important, especially if you're a black player playing in England, like, these issues need to be spoken about, because I think people need to understand that racism is still a thing. Not just in football, in general. So it's important to shed light on it and talk about it whenever it happens.
Yeah. And I think she did raise awareness of that, and she's not the first player, sadly, she will not be the last player. How do you help tackle that? I mean, is that something you've received?
To be honest, the only thing I've received is like a DM with like the N-word in it or something. And I think this was when I was at Birmingham, and I reported it to the safeguarding officer at Birmingham at the time. And what happened, they got the police involved, and the police like traced down who it was. And it was basically this person who was in this mental institution and had like a mental disorder or something. But again, it's like, I don't know how to tackle it, so to speak, because I feel like racism is something that you're taught. You're not just born and, oh my God, like, you're racist. Yeah. Like, it's got to come from the generations above you, like, or what you're learning or what you're reading. So yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. It's a tough one.
Good. Well, I mean, in terms of reporting it when that happens, that's a good thing. That's something that we do hear players do. I think there should be always more focus on it.
Oh, 100%.
People throw their fucking hands up in the air about any little thing, and I'm like, but if we all did that about racism, maybe it would have more of an impact. Yeah. Kind of thing. Maybe that's a bit preachy on my side.
Did anything happen to the person did they find out who it was?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think. Well, I haven't heard any of those reports. But I remember there was an Arsenal one recently, and the police got the guy. Yeah. They got the guy. And again, it was something stupid, like a young kid just being a stupid idiot, you know.
But this is what needs to happen. So it prevents people from doing it in the future, you know. Like, if it means that you're banned from going to the games for however long, or for good, you know. Like, these things need to happen so people stop doing it.
And it was named and shamed as well.
Yeah, good.
So there you go. That's what happens when you're trying to get a job. Yeah. People will know that you've done that.
Good.
So well done, you idiot, kind of thing.
Make your bed, lay in it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk to me then about the future for you. So in terms of your TikTok, do you rate people on PTs? Is that like the kind of...
No, so it's more like I will react to fitness content. Right. So let's say there's someone doing something or has a question and they're speaking about it on a TikTok, I'll just kind of like answer the question with my reaction, sort of thing. But I try make it funny, like I just try to be myself, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Do you want to
really.
see me squat?
Go on then.
Right, so apparently my insides, they turn in.
Right. Yeah, that's woeful. I'm not gonna lie to you. That is poor. That is poor. Maybe you should try with your shoes off. Well, at least you can touch your toes.
Yeah. You'd love my workouts. I'm gonna send you some, Chef.
Do you work out?
No!
Oh.
Well, to be fair, I should, because I'm turning into a fat bastard. Okay.
So I don't do nothing at all?
I was a good runner, but my knees are gone, my hips gone. And then I like to think I'll get into the routine. I do one day of lifting weights, and then I'm like DOMS for hell. And then I can't do it again. I lose it for another like 2 weeks.
You need structure and plan and routine. That's what you need.
Do you believe like eating's a big part of it as well?
100%. I think that's like 80 to 90% of it, for sure.
Okay.
What's your eating habits like?
Good.
Oh.
Good. But I did have 2 bottles of gin in the weekend there.
Right. So the drinking is
probably that's the bit I'm good at.
Right.
I'm really good at that.
So would you be happy with like cutting down a little bit or not? I'll take that.
I mean,
as a no.
it was a blowout. You know, Mama doesn't get out too much.
I don't know how you do it.
Mama's not been out in a while. Do you not drink alcohol?
Like, it depends. Like, if there's a certain occasion, yeah, but I can only have 1 or 2. Genuinely, I think the last time I drank was my birthday, which was like a couple of weeks back. I had like 2 drinks, and I was hanging the next day. I had a banging headache.
Yeah,
I know. And I do drink like it's strong. Like I have like Hennessy and Coke or something.
Okay.
So maybe I need to move to the gin. It's a bit more.
Listen, I wouldn't advise it.
Nah.
No.
What's just as bad?
I'm not big. I'm not clever.
Okay.
Well, I'm big. Shiv, it's been an absolute joy to speak to you today.
Thank you for having me, Angie.
Everyone can follow you all over the socials, right?
Yes.
Remind us.
Wilson Coaching on YouTube and TikTok, and then Wilson Coaching UK on Instagram.
Okay, and I'm going to teach you how to squat properly, okay?
Yeah, we need to work on that.
Shiv, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. had the pleasure of sitting down with England defender and 2022 European champion Millie Bright to chat about the Lionesses' chances at the Euros this summer. Here you go. Millie is 8 months off the coffee. How are you surviving?
Just high on life.
So you don't drink any caffeine?
I have a cup of tea, but it's only a small amount. But yeah, stop.
Out the tea, I'd die. I just
First 3 days I had headaches, was like aggy, angry. And then after that, I've had no fatigue, no like, oh my God, I need a coffee. Like that urge to have a coffee's gone. It's the best thing. I thought it was a myth. When everyone used to tell me quick coffee and you'll feel amazing, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And then I did it and I was like, I'm never drinking it ever again.
So are you one of those athletes who focuses on everything that goes into your body? Like even including caffeine, it's like a focal point?
I'd say I'm human. If I want a packet of sweets, I'm going to have a packet of sweets.
That's why we love you.
So
That's why we love you. Countdown's on then to the Euros.
yeah.
How you feeling about England and retaining the trophy?
Yeah, it's exciting. I think it's going to be a massive tournament. I think it's going to be the toughest one yet for all the nations. I think just where the women's game is. But yeah, I think we've got an amazing squad. We've got some amazing young talent that's come through and, you know, going to their first tournament. And I remember that, and it's super exciting. You know, you're almost fearless in that sense, which I think is really, really good. But yeah, it's anyone's trophy to take. And as much as, you know, we won it last time, I think it's a clean slate. It's a fresh England team. And I think you almost have to forget that you won it previously. And like I said, it's anyone's trophy to take. And the girls have that mentality anyway. So really looking forward to watching them.
It'll be different for you, won't it? Like how do you sit and watch England, knowing everything you know about that squad, knowing that you were part of that leadership group that won that trophy? Have you got FOMO yet? Or are you like, no, it's cool?
I'm terrible at watching games when I'm not a part of them, whether that's club or country. I'm awful. I feel like I'm still in the game, and it's one of them situations where you can't control the outcome, you can't influence, you can't impact. But yeah, I think I'll be sitting and watching, and I'll be really proud and just really excited to see some of the youngsters, the likes of Aggie, Grace. You know, I know how much hard work they've put into to be in this position, and I think they can really add something to the team. But yeah, I'm just going to be excited, and I'll probably be yelling at the TV and making sure that we get those 3 points and onto the next game.
I mean, it's a difficult group as well. I mean, it's been seen as one of the groups of death.
Yeah.
Where do you think will be the crucial game in the group stage?
I think everyone's focusing on our group, but I think all the groups are hard. It's tournament football, and I know it's cliche, every player says that, but tournament football is different. You know, when you're there, it's the only thing that matters is winning the game, and you do absolutely anything to win that game. It's not necessarily about performances. Yes, you want momentum, but momentum comes by winning and getting that good feel on and off the pitch. So I think that's the priority, and everyone's looking at, you know, the likes of France and Netherlands, but you know, the Wales game is going to be a big one. It's a massive rivalry of England, and yeah, I definitely think they're a team that are not to be overlooked. So for me, every game in a tournament is hard, and some of the results can surprise people.
If there is a game that you could go to in that group, see the England-Netherlands game, just because everybody knows each other so well.
Yeah.
It's almost a bit of like a WSL fixture.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you look at these teams coming together and these countries meeting, but the fans as well, like it's going to be such another injection into women's football. How important is that?
It's massive. The fans are everything in tournaments, in any game, you know, whether it's a final, a group stage, you know, the knockouts, it doesn't matter what it is. The fans create the atmosphere, they create the intensity. When it's the 80th minute, you're a little bit tired and they cheer you on when you win a tackle, or, you know, you get that shot on target or a goal. They're the ones that give you that little boost. And I think in the tough moments, you look in the crowd, and the ones that are cheering you on is what motivates you to give absolutely everything and leave it all out there. So again, I think it'll be a statement of women's football and where we're at, and just another gentle reminder of where we're wanting to get to. So yeah, I think it's going to be amazing.
And see those like volleyball and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see like another competitive edge of your teammates and people who are just annoyingly talented at all sports? I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah,
brave.
100%. That was one of the best things in the last Euros, is the volleyball net, because the staff would get involved.
Oh.
But there was that many players that wanted to take part, and the staff, that we'd just have to cram everyone on the pitch. So you'd be like, is it me, is it you? And then if you dropped it and you'd lose a point, you'd be like, for God's sake, like, move out the way, let me hit it. So, but again, they're the moments, they're the memories, they're the things that you look back on and you really appreciate, and you can really see how much it means to each other to be there, and to you know, they're just the things for me while you play team sport.
That's lovely. I'm glad you brought up Love Island, because old Giorgio Russo's going into the Villa Casa.
See?
What are we thinking about that? That's everyone's just going to be looking at Alessia Russo when she's trying to watch her brother on TV. It's random. I love it.
Yeah, it really is. It's it's a strange situation. You know, Lester's at the Euros. He's in Love Island. Hopefully not causing too much trouble in there. But yeah, I did see that she did a little interview and that the girls are all going to be watching, and that's going to be like a thing that they sit down and do. So I think it'll be really nice, and yeah, maybe it'll be able to take her mind off things a little bit as well.
And in terms of the squad, I take it you're in touch with them. What was the moment for you? You thought, I need to just prioritise myself this summer.
To be honest, it's been such a tough season. I think everyone looks at Chelsea and, you know, we've won the treble and gone unbeaten and it's all sunshine and rosy, but for me, it's been the toughest season. I know for the girls, it's been the toughest. There's so many barriers that we've overcome off the pitch and behind the scenes, and so many things we've had to deal with and change, and, you know, injuries and looking after one another, and, you know, whether it's personal things as well. There's been so much going off in the last season. And then I was really grateful that my knee lasted the whole time up until the last 10 minutes of the final against Man United. And I think obviously you get older. I'm 32 this year. I need to take care of my knee. I also want longevity in my career, and, you know, I want to play as long as I can. So I think after that, I had to sit down and kind of make the decision, and the priority was just, one, taking care of myself physically and making sure that I can continue playing, and two, just, I think sometimes you just need to sit back and take a break. And for me, I couldn't actually think of the Euros. It weren't really in my head. So for me, that's when I knew I needed to reflect on my decisions and my options. And also I see it as it would have been pretty selfish to have gone and taken up a space when there's someone else that's 100% available mentally and physically to compete and give the team the best possible chance of winning. So yeah.
Good on you. There are experienced players who we're going to see in this tournament who are missing from the World Cup, Beth Mead and Leah Williamson. How crucial is it to have those players, those characters as well, back in this England squad? Yeah,
it's massive. It's a huge boost, and I know they were so eager to be back, and obviously it was really hard for them to miss the World Cup. So to have them back, like we said, Leah's the captain, she's the leader, she's the one, you know, walking out in front of everyone, and the one that people are turning to and looking to in moments to you know, guide them and give them that confidence. And I think Mido, it's, you know, it speaks for itself, the player that she is, the character she brings. She gives the team that fire and that oomph, and, like you said, very experienced players, which in tournaments you do need. I think you need a good blend of, you know, the youngsters, which have that fearless mentality, that, you know, eagerness and energy, and then you do need that experience to kind of guide that and just bottle it up where it needs to be and keep everything in check. So I think it's a massive boost for the team.
Yeah, LJ also back in the squad as well. You know her very well, obviously, from Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I find her just an incredible. You just watch her play, and I'm like, geez, she's just different levels.
Just not real.
Yeah,
she is. No, she's a massive boost, and I think I've seen behind the scenes like how hard she's worked to put herself back in a position to be available. She's had a hard run of injuries, and, you know, she's worked so hard to get back, and it's so nice to see her back out there playing first and foremost, but also knowing that she's at the Euros, and she's, you know, she's that little golden ticket almost. And but I equally think, you know, there's enough pressure on her, so she just needs to enjoy it. And when she's happy and she's playing her best football, that's when you'll get the best out of her. So yeah, I have no doubts about LJ. She's an incredible person, but a fantastic footballer.
I was listening to your podcast with Rachel Daly, and you were talking about how the day after you won the Euros, how everything changed overnight. And we've heard that. How important is it to protect the youngsters coming into this England group if they are to win again?
Yeah.
That, you know, the pressures now, social media, everything, the media, the press, it's a different level now on them.
It's crazy. My advice would be come off socials. I've done it every single tournament, and, you know, I always back my decision. It's been the best thing. I actually find it hard going back on social media after, because you get so used to not having it, and there's just no ag, and you're not reading any comments, and people will say, oh, just don't read them. But it's not as easy, you know, when you're getting, your messages are flooding through, and you're getting tagged in things, whether it's positive, negative, everyone have an opinion. It's easier said than done, but honestly, if I was speaking to the youngsters, I always said, come off it for the tournament, find your little niche thing that you need to do, whether it's mine and Rach, we did journaling. We used to journal at every tournament, and we do TikToks. That was the only platform that we was on. We were just doing silly dances or challenges, or just being me and Rach goofy. But yeah, it's hard, and I think they should also tap into the experienced players and how they dealt with the pressures of being there, the pressures of family, because that's another thing that people don't see is, your families want to be so supportive, but sometimes it's so overwhelming having so many messages and, oh my God, we've seen this in the pub down the street and look how many people they are. And I said to mine, don't tell me anything, don't send me anything. I'll relive it all after the tournament. Please don't bombard my phone, which my family have always been amazing with stuff like that. And they know now anyway how to deal with it. But for people that haven't, I think it's definitely a conversation that the youngsters should have with families, and making sure just as much as they're dealing with it, your families need to respect boundaries as well. And then coming out of tournaments, no matter how far you go, you still need that moment to decompress. If you've not gone as far as you wanted to, you've got to deal with that. If you go all the way and you win, you definitely need to decompress. I didn't leave the house for 6 days. It was just, I said to Rach, I kept texting, I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Who do I see? Where do I go? And it was just, I think the only time I left the house was to collect all the letters and the flags that the village had put in the trees, which again, super respectful. Not one knock on my door, not one letter through the letterbox. Like, all the fan stuff was all in the trees, which was really cute. And the village printed a massive banner and stuck it up, as I drove in I could see it. So I just went round and collected everything, and then I just went through letters. But I was just like, I literally didn't know what to do in my life. Someone cooks for you every day, you get breakfast, you get everything, you're told where to go, where to be, what to wear, and then you go home and you've just changed the nation and took it to a whole nother level, and you become a European champion, and then you just sit there. And I was like, okay, what do I do? Rachel, where are you? Come for a sleepover.
Sorted in, delivered. And that's the thing as well. I had read somewhere, in fact, I don't even know if it was you said it, Millie, in an interview. You're a very clear thinker, and even this conversation now, you're very clear in your thoughts, and I love that. Was it you and Leah Williamson who said in that Euros, we can win this, let's now start? How important is it to have characters like that in the squad this time, to go, we know we're good enough to win this? And do you think England are equipped with those characters?
Yeah, you've got to have that. The last Euros, we had a rule that we had a bubble. Nothing got in the bubble and nothing got out the bubble. And we protected each other. We protected kind of that circle that we was in. And as much as we said internally that, we always said, we know we can win this tournament, but we never spoke of it. And that was like a golden rule. We don't say we're going to win. We know our beliefs and we leave it there. We train every day hard. We do our recovery properly. We don't skip corners. We tick all the boxes every single day. And then the rest is history. So I think the same applies. You can't look too far ahead. You can't live in the past or yesterday's session. You just have to make sure you're ticking all that you can do. And all that you can do as a player is give 100%. You can't give any more than that. And you can't give any more than doing all the right things and making sure every single day you can look each other in the eye and be like, I've done all I can do today to be the best for tomorrow. So that was kind of the golden rule that we had. And I do think there's those characters. You've got Lucy Bronze, Leah Williamson, Beth Mead, Chloe Kelly. You've got players that have experienced that and experienced games outside of international as well at the highest level and what it takes to win. So it's just about guiding everyone and being on the same page is the biggest thing. But again, the media is as intense as ever, so protecting each other is crucial. And I seen an interview that Serena did about the outside noise. It's just noise. As long as you know what path you're on as a team, and that's staff included, the outside's irrelevant.
I feel like you're like a little built-in Tony Robbins. You've written that book or something, The Power of the Law of Attraction. I feel like I'm ready and pumped. Let's go!
Don't give me an idea.
I'm just going to write the book.
Book's coming out soon.
It's all in the journals. Listen, I'll miss you. I'll miss watching you. You know how much you'll miss it as well. We look forward to seeing you back in an England shirt. And tell us, are you confident they can win it again? Now you're out the bubble for a minute.
100%. I believe in the girls all the way, and I might do a little bit of vlogging along the way, so you can still see me.
You need to do watch-alongs.
Yeah, I will.
You and Rachel.
I will actually. Yeah.
Yeah, bottle of wine, not a coffee, just a bottle of wine. Watch-alongs, unfiltered. Go for it. I'm in there. Let's for that.
All right, it's happening.
Well, have a good summer. Good luck to England, and thank you for speaking to us.
No worries. Thank you.
Amazing to speak to Millie Bright. She was in unbelievable form, especially just ahead of the Euros. We're days away now from it all kicking off. Throughout the tournament, Baller FC are going to be hosting watch parties for every Lioness game. So pleased to say that founder Rachel Gould joins me down the line to reveal a little bit more about these watch parties. Hello Rachel, how are you? Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Is this like the moment, Rachel, you get to sit and act like everything's calm? We're on Zoom, everything's calm, but you're probably like flying around trying to organise everything before it all gets underway.
There's a lot going on. It's pretty busy. I've got a lot of lists.
I bet you do. Tell me, like, where the events are happening. What's the plan?
Okay, so I mean, Baller FC stands for Baller Friends Collective. It's a group of us who are friends. We're huge football fans. And since 2022, we've been putting on watch parties for the women's football, particularly the England games, but all the other games as well for the other home nations and the other teams in Europe. This year, we are hosting events in London and Manchester. So in London, we will be hosting them at Signature Brew in Haggerston, and also Black Horse Road Brewery. And then we've also got a team up in Manchester who are hosting them at the Carlton Club in Whalley Range.
And how are tickets going for this? Have you got people who are well up for it, up for the crack, looking to mingle with their pals?
Yeah, I mean, this Saturday we're doing a crossover Pride event alongside the England and Wales games. That's completely sold out in London. But there are tickets still available for Manchester. And then for all the other England and Wales games in London, we do still have tickets available.
Excellent. I mean, it's a great concept. I keep saying, I actually said this to Millie Bright last week. I was like, people now want to watch games together. There's such an appetite for the women coming together and then just like supporting teams together. And it doesn't have to be like nicey all the time. Like there's a certain energy. There's that kind of passion that comes from women as well, funnily enough.
Yeah, and I mean, we encourage everybody from all the teams to come down, but we love a little bit of rivalry. You know, if the Spain fans want to start chanting something at the England fans, then, you know, we encourage that.
And what about you? I mean, tell me about the things that you've witnessed in these watch parties, and I take it there's a huge demand for them as well.
There's a huge demand. I mean, I think what has been really nice is the amount of people that come down on their own. So they will come down and they know that they will feel welcome and they'll feel safe. We try and make it as inclusive as possible. And we always have our ballers there to welcome people and to just introduce you to people if you are on your own. I think the overwhelming feeling is that people just really want to celebrate now that women's football is so big. We just want to celebrate it and just enjoy every minute that we can.
Are you positive that the Lionesses are going to do it again?
I think they look pretty good. Like the Jamaica game yesterday, I thought they looked solid, and I think a lot of players are on top form, particularly a lot of the Arsenal players. They've obviously had a great season, Champions League final. So I think we are, and like Ella Toon yesterday, we're going in with some of our best players really on top form. So I am kind of confident, you know, they should definitely get quite far.
Who are the fans that who are most rowdy, like at these watch parties?
Well, I would say the Irish. And sadly, they're not going to be, they're not in this tournament. But I mean, the England fans are always very rowdy. The England games are really, really high energy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is about the Irish, you know, in a bar watching Ireland play that gets people all G'd up.
I don't know.
I'll never work it out, but no, I mean, honestly, I'm just about over the heartbreak of that reaction of Ireland not being there. But the Lionesses look very promising, that's for sure, and I would be sticking a cheeky little quid on them. Tell me about the future as well. I mean, have you got watch parties planned for next season? Is that something that you're going to start looking at as well?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we've been doing WSL watch parties for 2 years now, so they're really popular. Champions League is getting really, really popular. So we'll be showing all the Champions League, and then we always show every England game, friendly, tournament, whatever's going on. So yeah, it's going to be a busy season again next season.
Okay, well, you mentioned Ireland, so we're just going to cut to our gal, Rusha Littlejohn. She's out playing for Ireland at the moment in international friendlies against the USA, and she gave us her prediction of what she thinks will happen this summer.
Hello there, people. How's it going? Okay, so Women's Euro 2025 winners, I'm going to go with, which by the way I don't agree with, I like to watch the first games, at least to get a feel for the teams and go off that, but you're hanging out to dry a little bit. oh, I know Shabana will be sitting there going, Netherlands are in with a chance. She's probably got her England top on. She's probably bought one already. And yes, obviously we can't rule them out. But I feel like France could be up there right now. Also, Spain, obviously. But I'm going to go for someone different right now. Excuse my hair. I'm going to go with Germany because I get they're going through a bit of a transition period. They've lost a few of their stars, like Lena McGill and Pop. But I'm just going to take a wild punt on them right now. I don't know why. I'm just going for it. Germans efficient. And then surely when the tournament kicks off and we get to watch the teams in their first games, we will get to do another prediction. I'm sure we will on the kickback. That's it. Germany right now. That might change after. We'll see.
The Germans, remember last time round, Rachel, it was a final of England-Germany and it was England who did it. Do you see the Germans being a bit of a threat to the campaign this time round?
I think Germany do have a strong team, but I think as ever, it's going to be Spain are going to be the ones to beat. So, you know, that's who I think our biggest competition is going to be.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on with us today. Just remind everyone where we can see your platforms and make sure we can get tickets if we want to join these watch parties.
So if you go on our website, www.ballerfc.com, there's a link there to all the tickets for London and Manchester.
Lovely stuff. Rachel Gold from Baller, thank you so much for being with us today. And we look forward for the watch parties growing and having a good time, most importantly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye. Today's show is brought to you by LG and its all-in pledge campaign to increase viewership across women's sport. Watching, as you know, changes everything. By pledging to watch more women's sport this summer, you'll be part of the drive to increase investment, grow the game and create opportunities for young girls to get involved themselves. Let's hear again from LG's ambassador, Millie Bright, speaking about the importance of the LG all-in pledge campaign.
Women in sport, and I think again that's something that I'm proud of, is that we champion one another no matter what sport you play in. As a woman, like, we champion each other to be successful and congratulate each other, and just been powerful athletes, and yeah, just showing who we are and that we deserve to be on that platform and to be visible all over the world.
And that's the thing, with that increased viewership, it will only send a message to fans as well. How important is it that they get that message?
Yeah, it's massive, and I'm going to be front of it, making sure that they definitely get that message. But LG have been, you know, amazing in that, and you know, the pledge is now live and active, so you know, want everyone to head over and take a look into that and really get on board, because this is about people that are genuinely caring for the women's game and women in sport and really want to make a difference. You know, you've got fathers with daughters that kind of see the struggles and see the barriers and are really trying to make a difference. So something that I'm really proud of and really grateful and thankful that they're, you know, willing to do this, but it's going to be a game changer for sure.
You're going to be watching this summer. The nation will be watching. The world will be watching, because it's only going one way. Watching changes everything. I love that. That's brilliant.
It does, and I can't wait. I'll be there rooting. I'm definitely going to be watching, so make sure everyone else does as well.
This episode of The Kickback was brought to you by LG and its all-in pledge campaign, Watching Changes Everything. With an incredible summer of female sport just around the corner, we can all make a difference by signing LG's pledge to support female sport this summer. You can also use the LG's AI music tool to create a song of support for the girls. It's good fun. Head to lg.com/UK/Radio Optimism to make yours now and send your tune to the players on social. Join us next week to hear what Millie Bright and I created for the Lionesses. You will not want to miss that. Trust me, it's a really good tune. Don't forget to like, subscribe, see us on social media. Don't forget to like The Kickback as well on TikTok. Be in the comments, be kind, and we'll see you again next week when the Euros is underway, baby!
Not just her, but the whole squad are underperforming.
I've been there, I've been that statistic. I think it's something like 1 million girls in the UK drop out of sport every year.
Hello and welcome back to The Kickback.
You're looking a bit heavy, Callum.
Wait, fat?
Oh, you've come in to start our hair.
You seem to have been running around upsetting people, Spencer, you treacherous little hound.
Boom! Like that. That's where he was getting stuck.
Usyk the one, coming off the better.
10:49 and 10:53.
Agony for the Eagles continues. UEFA have postponed the ruling over Palace's participation in next season's Europa League. The matter of breaching multi-club ownership rules is still being looked into due to John Textor's involvement with Lyon. That's despite the fact Textor has resigned from his role at Lyon. Here's Simon's take on the debacle.
Today. 6 of them have made it through to the second round. Emma Raducanu is one of them, while Katie Bolter's match has gone to a third set. Lisa O'Sullivan is watching that one for us.
Well, the British number 2 stormed through the first set 6-2 against Paula Badosa. The ninth seed levelled up, taking the second 6-3. It is now one game apiece in the decider. Meanwhile, the last Brit to start the day.
An unchanged 11 for the Bazballers at Edgbaston means Jofra Archer will have to watch and wait. Steve Harmison says, good call.
Thanks, Lisa. Elsewhere, it took Carlos Alcaraz 5 sets to get past Italian Fabio Fognini. He'll play Oliver Tarvert, the British qualifier, who's currently ranked world number 733 in the second round. Meanwhile, Keith Andrews has spoken to the press for the first time as Brentford's new coach, and the former set-piece coach told talkSPORT he didn't think he'd be managing
an excellent day one for the Brits at Wimbledon. British number 3 Sonny Cartel beat 20th seed Elena Ostapenko, whilst in the men's draw 20th seed Alexei Poprin was knocked out by British qualifier Arthur Ferry. No line judges this year at the championships, and Nick Kyrgios says the players are worse off without
the Europa League to the Conference League. That's demoted, sorry. It's over John Textor, their owner, being currently involved with Lyon. There's more on that story over on our website, talksport.com.
talkSPORT News.
Updated plans to the welfare system have been laid out to MPs
and with line selection increasingly starting to take shape, Alex Cuthbert's told us every single warm-up game
further inquiries
is
are
vital.
needed
In the
over
top five in 2013, you could probably nail the team on for the Saturday, but we had a game on the Tuesday or Wednesday
your go-to
before,
destination for quality tyres from great brands like Continental. Visit your local centre or quickfit.com and book today.
Hot and muggy in England and Wales with isolated heavy showers possible. It'll be cooler and fresher in the northwest.
It's 8:03, it's the Transfer Insiders with me, Chris Latcham, and Rory Jennings. Rory, I don't know if you heard the weather forecast just then. Hot and muggy. That's just us in the studio.
Yeah,
I'll let the listeners decide who's who. Right, here's the area of the show that is your speciality. Chelsea, Rory, on all your Instas and all of that. Chelsea's transfer latest. Now, we talked about Arsenal, there being sagas. Chelsea are pretty swift when they get in. They identify who they want. They want João Pedro. They've seen off Newcastle, and it looks like they're going to sign him in time to play. Is it Friday night in the Club World Cup?
He's flying out, absolutely. I mean, this I believe is a good signing. Like, I've been very scathing about the way that Chelsea have conducted our business of late. I've been very scathing about this new ownership. Generally speaking, I don't like the direction of travel that the club are moving in. But that doesn't mean that signing João Pedro isn't a good signing. I think it's the exact kind of signing that we need, actually, because the board, via our sporting directors, have employed this philosophy, this approach, where we will only sign young players who cost less now and should improve, and therefore their value will improve, and they will ultimately be able to turn a profit on them. That philosophy isn't going away. But the one reason why this one works and kind of straddles both ideologies is because, so what I want Chelsea to sign proven footballers that are capable of driving Chelsea to win a Premier League title, players that are capable of driving Chelsea to have a genuine chance of lifting the European Cup next year in Budapest. That's what I want. The board want to sign young players with potential. I feel like João Pedro is the grey area of the Venn diagram of both ideologies. He's young and his value can go up, and there's a world in which he could one day become one of the best players in the world.
Do you think?
Well, that's what you're buying. The potential is there. He's very young.
Okay.
But what you're also buying is a proven footballer, a player who has scored massive goals for Brighton, a player who has scored lots of Premier League goals, a player that we know can do it in the Premier League. So I think this is great news, and I think that the brilliant part of this deal. With a little bit of luck, if it goes as we hope, we've signed Liam Delap, we've now signed João Pedro. Maybe I won't have to suffer the torture of watching Nicholas Jackson play football anymore.
We're going to get on to Nicholas Jackson. Chelsea, of course, are already through to the quarterfinals of the Club World Cup. There's been an early goal in tonight's early game. Ian Abrahams.
Inter Milan 0, Fluminense 1. You mentioned Nicholas Jackson there, the referee who sent Nicholas Jackson off in the last game for Chelsea. Sorry, not last game, the one before that, is the referee of this game tonight. And he's already given a goal for Fluminense. Ball in from the right-hand side, took a flick off a defender, looped up in the air. The Inter Milan defence were all over the place, and Cano from 3 yards out headed between the legs of Jan Sommer to give the Brazilian side the lead. Inter Milan 0, Fluminense 1. The Brazilian side ahead inside 4 minutes.
Thank you, Moose. So back to João Pedro then. It seems that there's this urgency to get him over the line, to get him out. Chelsea really are using this Club World Cup as their pre-season, aren't they?
Yeah.
How close are we to seeing Enzo Maresca's Premier League first team now?
I think we're getting there. I don't think he will know what it is yet. I think that there's still certain players that are evolving. I think there's certain positions that are still up for grabs. But a lot of it is falling into place. I think that by and large, we kind of know what team we will be putting out come the first day of the season. It's certainly shaping up that way. And if the tactics can be right, if Enzo Maresca can get it right, then we could have a very good season. The players are there. I just think that there are some question marks. There are some players that are just obviously not good enough. And annoyingly, there is still a question mark over the manager.
Yeah, okay. And he's slowly chipping away at that question mark. Yeah. Obviously got into the Champions League. They're through to the last 8 of this Club World Cup. Whatever you think of the Club World Cup, just want to look at some of the signings. Liam Delap is... Which category does he fall in? Is he unproven or is he now proven at Premier League?
He's a little bit of both. He's a little bit of both. I think what you're signing with Liam Delap is a player for 30 million quid, it was an absolute no-brainer. He scored 12 goals for Ipswich last year.
For a struggling team.
12 goals for a team that got relegated. Only 10 of them from open play, by the way. And a lot of the goals, if you look at the way that he scored them, it was him. It was his own toil, his own hard work, his own effort, his own ingenuity. He wasn't relying on... I don't even know who he would be relying on. Amari Hutchinson to create.
Yeah, Connor Chaplin was out for most of the season.
Who's he relying on? It was his own work. It was his own hard work. And only one player at Chelsea scored more than the 12 he scored for Ipswich. That's how much of a good signing I believe Liam Delap is. And now João Pedro coming in, I think again it's a very good signing. We need a little bit more, and I think that we were very foolish, and the board were very foolish that we didn't go and sign. Mike Mannion, AC Milan's goalkeeper. Yeah. France's number one.
It's still available. Why is that completely gone away?
We over £5 million. And it felt like we could have had him. It felt like the deal was waiting for us. AC Milan wanted an extra $5 million. We were happy to give Leicester £30 million for Keane and Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah. And you're spending, if João Pedro, Jamie Gittins go through this week, which we think they will, that'll be £12 million spent in this window. You're quibbling over £5 million.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I know there's a lot of those things that do not make sense. But the team that we're assembling here, almost by accident, I feel like it's shaping up to be a decent side. That there is a chance that it will go wrong for us next season. Of course it will. This isn't the guarantee. What we don't have, when we were good, really good, and it went Cech, Terry, Lampard, Drogba, a spine, and you knew it was going to be good because that spine would guarantee that you finish first or second in the league. We don't have that. It could go wrong.
So which are the weaker vertebrae? The defence, the goalkeeper?
But all of the above. Yeah, absolutely.
The midfield, I think, we spoke about this in the green room as well. I think your midfield core of Caicedo, Romeo Lavia and Enzo in front of them with Cole Palmer as well. I think that's the best in the league.
I think that your praise there, whilst I would love that to be true, I think your praise is slightly generous. I think it's one of the best midfields in the league. I do agree with you. And I think that if you break it down more individually, I think, for example, Moises Caicedo could possibly be, you could easily argue, that he is one of, if not the best midfielder in the league. I think last season he had a sensational season, basically a flawless season in the middle.
So does he need to back it up then for anything that I've said there to actually hold weight?
Yeah, I think what we need is that you mentioned in your trio, where it might be true, you mentioned Romeo Lavia, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And I agree that when Romeo Lavia plays, we are a better team and we do look good, and maybe we have the best midfield when Romeo Lavia is fit. His problem is availability.
Staying available.
Yeah, he's just not fit. And then the players that come in when he's not available, whoever that is, the level really does drop off. The balance in the team really does drop off. Like Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo together, I know this sounds ridiculous because together those two players are worth £250 million. But those two, just as a two, don't really work together.
Yeah.
They need Lavia.
They need the foil.
Yeah, they need the foil, absolutely. So there's certainly question marks, and then you look at the defence and it feels dodgy. And then you look at the goalkeeper, and I don't think it's an extreme thing to say he's the worst goalkeeper in the league.
Robert Sanchez, right?
Yeah.
And even then, last season, he wasn't guaranteed. He was rivaling with the shirt with Jorgensen and others, and you need one goalkeeper. You need to know who's the goalkeeper.
Yeah, and it needs to be a player that you need to be able to rely on your goalkeeper.
Emi Martinez?
I would take Martinez. I mean, a lot of people don't like him. I don't particularly like him, but I do rate him. And
why? Because of his antics? I mean,
yeah,
he's a bit of a wind-up, isn't he?
He's a wind-up, and
isn't that perfect for Chelsea?
To a degree.
John Terry used to be your captain.
Yeah, but John Terry was an elite level player, whereas I think Emi Martinez is at best a decent Premier League goalkeeper now. I think there was a time a couple of years ago, maybe the World Cup year, the year before the World Cup year, you could say that he was one of the best goalkeepers.
He has made mistakes this season. He let Bernardo Silva goal go right through him late in the season, and it was straight at him.
He's cost Villa at various points, and I think the reason why he is now looking like he's available is because his form is starting to dip. But it would be a stopgap signing, and ultimately I'm getting a bit desperate here, which is probably not a good strategy. But I would say any goalkeeper that isn't Robert Sanchez would be a good signing for Chelsea. Like, it's got to that desperate stage. You know, when you're going into a season and you're looking at the centre halves, and I think we've got issues at centre half. You know, I think Tosin is good but not great. I would prefer Chalobah, but he doesn't seem to be particularly popular. Levi Colwill, in my opinion, gets way more credit than perhaps he necessarily deserves yet. And then you've got a goalkeeper that, like I said earlier, and I don't think it's hyperbole to say that he is one of, if not the worst goalkeeper in the league. There is a ceiling as to how much you can dream and how well your season can possibly go.
Yeah. Let's say that Chelsea have to balance the books like every other club. I know that they find ways to balance the books, not necessarily on player sales, but if they have to shift players on, who urgently needs to go?
Well, in terms of who urgently needs to go, I'd say that there are players that need to go, but they probably won't command massive fees because they're not very good. Like, Axel Disasi is a terrible centre-half, so we're not going to be able to sell him for big money. Benoit Badiashile. Benoit Badiashile wouldn't have got into our team that lost the FA Cup final in 1994. You know, he genuinely, Jakob Bjelberg and Erland Johnson were better players than Benoit Badiashile.
Are they still available?
So, but they do a better job than he would. So there are players like that. If you try and balance this, I think it's an interesting conversation. If you look at the players that could be available, that are surplus to requirements at Chelsea, potentially, but would still hold some value, you're looking at maybe Madueke, maybe Nicholas Jackson. They're players that I believe we could sell for a profit, sell for decent money, that wouldn't necessarily leave us short. Like, if we sold Madueke, we still have a really good midfield. We haven't even discussed Pedro Neto.
Yeah,
so
I've got players. He scored 3 goals at the Club World Cup.
So yeah, we've got players. We could afford to potentially lose Noni Madueke, turn a profit on him, and not necessarily do ourselves any damage. I would also say the same about Nicholas Jackson, because we only paid £30 million for him. I think he's probably worth a bit more than that now. And ultimately, we will have elevated his position in signing Liam Delap.
Yeah. And the other one that you've not mentioned is Estevao, who you get to have a good look at in the Club World Cup on Friday, because he plays for Palmeiras until they get knocked out.
Exactly. So let's see how that one goes. You know, I'm always very, very cautious about putting too much pressure and optimism on young players. Like, you know, when I see it online a lot with Chelsea fans, they start talking about Estevao as if he's going to revolutionise our team.
He's a Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff,
etc.
Yeah, I mean, and we've heard it all before, time and time again, haven't we? I'm old enough to remember Cherno Samba.
Yes, so, yeah. Football manager legend, or championship manager legend as it was back then.
Exactly.
Okay, on Cherno Samba, it's time to take a break. You listen to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+, begambleaware.org. Hello, welcome back to Transfer Insiders. Katie Boulter is on court in the first round on the first day, the hottest ever first day at the Wimbledon Championships, and she's playing a deciding set. Lisa O'Sullivan's watching.
Yeah, she's taking on the number 9 seed Paula Badosa of Spain, and it's a real battle between these two, who are back on serve in the deciding set. Boulter took the first 6-2, Badosa raising her game to take the second 6-3 and level the match, and Boulter 3-2 up on serve in this third and final set. But it's anybody's match at this point, and I suspect whoever's going to hold their serve and actually control their shots a little better will come through this, which was always going to be a 50-50. Over on court 17, it's been a real great performance from Mika Stosav-Jeljevic, the hugely talented 16-year-old who won the US Open girls title last year. She's taking on Aisling Kruger of the United States, who's seeded 31 here. 6-3, 4-2 is the score in favour of the American, but kudos to the young Brit, who is definitely one to watch.
Brilliant. Lisa, thank you. Good luck to Katie Boulter, targeting a place in round 2 at the All England Club. Back with Lisa a little bit later on. We're going to focus on Arsenal now for the next section of Transfer Insiders. Harry Symeou, Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, friend of the show, regular on the show, is with us. Hiya, Harry. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, guys. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Anybody who's watching on the TV feeds will see that you've got your Arsenal shirts in the background. We had a little subtopic earlier on when we had our assistant producer Luke in. He was asking us whether Ollie Watkins to Manchester United, Ollie Watkins to Arsenal would be a goer. It's a rumour that will never seem to go away. What would your thoughts be on that, Harry?
I mean, he wouldn't be my first choice just because of the sort of contract situation. You'd probably need to give him quite a big contract. And, you know, he's not the sort of 22, 23-year-old profile that Arsenal tend to go for. So I don't think he'd be Arsenal's first choice either. But I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if he landed at Emirates Stadium come the end of the transfer window, because I think he's shown time and time again that he can do it in the Premier League. I think he's shown time and time again that there's more to his game than just putting the ball in the back of the net. And I know that everybody says that that's what Arsenal need, that guy that's going to pop up inside the 6-yard box and put the ball in the back of the net. But at the end of the day, Mikel Arteta prefers his strikers, I think, to be all-encompassing, to bring more to the team and to have a really strong all-round game. And I think Ollie Watkins, you know, can do that. He was obviously the subject of some interest from Arsenal in January, but the club didn't feel at the time that the price that Aston Villa were demanding was fair. But, you know, 6 months down the line, maybe things have changed. Again, I don't think it would be the priority for Arsenal, but if they were to find it difficult to get a deal over the line for one of the players that they're targeting as a primary target, then maybe they pivot to Ollie Watkins. I know there won't be that many Arsenal fans excited by that, but I don't think it would be the worst signing in the world, if I'm honest.
Harry, looking at what else is going on at Arsenal, there seems to now be some genuine links between Arsenal Football Club and Eberechi Eze. From the outside looking in, I just think this is a great signing. This is exactly the signing that Arsenal should be making. I think he's a better player than Gabriel Martinelli, and he will give Mikel Arteta a totally different option. Do you look at it that way? Do you like the idea of Eze becoming an Arsenal player?
Oh, I absolutely love it. I love it. I'm a massive fan of Eze. I think he's got that bit of flair, that bit of magic that maybe at times this Arsenal team's missing. I feel like sometimes, you know, we've got the running power, we've got the physicality, but sometimes we just are missing that little bit of guile and technique in and around the penalty area. He's full of confidence at the moment as well, having helped Crystal Palace to the FA Cup, playing a massive part in that. He's at the stage in his career where I think it's right for him to move on, with all due respect to Crystal Palace. And I think, you know, we've been talking a lot about a winger. It doesn't look like Gabriel Martinelli or Leandro Trossard will be leaving. We know that Bukayo Saka's got the right-hand side nailed down. So the idea of bringing in someone like Eze, who could not only play from that left-hand side at points, but could also give you an option in the more central areas as well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Mikel Arteta has always been really big on versatility. And in Eberechi Eze, you've got a player that can do the wide job if you want him to. He can play as an 8. He can play as a 10. He can play just in behind the striker. He's got that versatility about him. And I think that would appeal to Arsenal. And it will appeal, of course, to Mikel Arteta. And obviously with a release clause, obviously, there's still some negotiations that would need to take place. You know, you might want to try and trigger that release clause by making a certain payment structure or whatever. but it's not a difficult deal to do, given there is that clear figure for which Crystal Palace would be allowed to leave him. And from what we're hearing and what we're reading, I don't think Arsenal would have any issues, A, convincing him to come, and B, with the personal terms.
Yeah, it's interesting you were saying that the ideal for Mikel Arteta is to sign younger players. Eze is obviously not in that bracket. He's just turned 27. But is the importance this season, especially after those 3 second places in the Premier League, to have plug-and-play options that are just ready to hit the ground running?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure it's Mikel Arteta that is sort of obsessed, if you like, with the idea of signing players of a certain age profile. I think it's more of a club policy. And I think if you go back to one of the interviews that Edu gave during his time as the club sporting director, he talked a lot about it. He said, look, if they're 27, 28 years old, then they really have to be the right guy, and all the conditions around the signing have to be right. But we've seen Mikel Arteta get his way with a few players that don't fall into that ideal age bracket recently. You've seen someone like Christian Norgard. We're very, very close to doing that deal. He doesn't fall into that bracket. Mikel Merino last summer was another player that I'd imagine there were people at the club looking at and going, I'm not sure a player of that age is what we're looking for right now. But Mikel Arteta, I think, wants to win now. He's taken this team so far, but he needs to get over the line. And if it means signing some 27, 28-year-olds, as you say, plug and play type players, then I think he's more than happy to do that. He has to convince the club to kind of just break away from their ideal transfer policy a little bit as well. But I think he's got that clout and he's got that power to be able to at least bring them to the table for that discussion.
Harry, I'm with you on Eberechi Eze. I'm slightly underwhelmed, I think, with the Norgard transfer. What do you think this means for your midfield? So it would mean effectively Thomas Partey and Jorginho moving out, and it looks like Zubimendi plus Norgard moving in. Is that the elevation that you're hoping for in the middle?
Well, I got pelters on this very show last week for saying...
Welcome to my world.
for literally saying that, Christian Norgard is not a bad player in isolation. I don't look at Christian Norgard and go, you're not a good player, you're of no use. I think he's got his uses. I think he's got a skill set that Arsenal could do with in a lot of ways. But where I was struggling with it was people were framing it in this way for me that made no sense. What they were saying was, well, Zubimendi's coming in to replace Partey, and actually Norgard will be coming in to replace Jorginho. Well, actually, Jorginho left ages ago. Jorginho's agreement to go to Brazil was in place ages ago. The one that has gone to make way for Christian Norgard is Thomas Partey. So Arsenal had two options. You either use the money that you spent on Christian Norgard to give Thomas Partey that contract and you keep him, and then you have him and Zubimendi, or you let Partey go and you bring in Christian Norgard to be that replacement. So I don't think that Christian Norgard versus Thomas Partey upgrades us. I know that Zubimendi will be the starting six. He's the one that's going to carry the burden. He's the one that's going to carry the weight and all the responsibility. And I hope Christian Norgard proves me wrong. I really, really do. But he's got to make a big step up. He's not been playing at this level. He's not been playing in the Champions League. He's not been playing at a club where there's this level of scrutiny on every single move, pass, shot, free kick that you take. So Christian Norgard has to step up. If he can do that, happy days, and I'm happy to be proven wrong further down the line. But right now, I can't hand on my heart say that I think Arsenal are better for losing Thomas Partey and bringing Christian Norgard in.
Harry, we've been talking for 10 minutes and we haven't mentioned the fact that Arsenal need a striker. I mean, we touched on Ollie Watkins, but he's not the priority, as you mentioned. It's Gyökeres, it's Šeško. They have different age profiles. Your personal preference is which, and which one is more likely, do you think?
Well, my personal preference for a while has been Viktor Gyökeres, just because of what you touched on earlier, really. I feel he's a little bit more plug and play. He's at the stage in his career where he's ripe, if that makes sense. He should be able to slot in, and he's, I'm sure, got the confidence and the sort of the track record to be able to come in and score goals instantly, which I think is what Arsenal need. I think the club's preference is probably Benjamin Sesko. I've always had that feeling. I did try and do some digging on this earlier in the week. I got late last week, and the response I kept getting from some of Benjamin Sesko's camp was, "We can't comment at the moment," with a smiley face on the end. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's significant, but it at least tells me that their deal for Viktor Gyökeres is not done. And we are getting loads of reports coming out of Portugal telling us that, yep, he's agreed to join Arsenal. Arsenal want him. They're just in talks with Sporting, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that one is as cut and dry as people are making it out. I don't think Arsenal are that far along really with any of them to the point where we're talking about one or the other being a certainty. But my gut feel is that Arsenal have wanted Sesko for a while, and they're going to exhaust all their options when it comes to getting him before maybe pivoting to Viktor Gyökeres.
Okay, so if they get one of them over the line, they'll have a striker. They've already got midfield tied up with the Norgard and the Zubimendi deals that are close. Kepa, goalkeeper, looks like he's coming in as well. So that's almost every department. And then there's Christian Mosquera from Valencia. We understand they're preparing a second bid for them. That's rebuilding maybe not the first spine of the team, but at least the backup spine.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Arsenal, you look at that squad and you probably think a defender should be at the bottom of the priority list, because Arsenal haven't really had any issues there. They had some injuries, but they've been able to cover them. I think a big part of the reason why Arsenal are probably moving for a defender is because Takahiro Tomiyasu just cannot get fit. And that's a big problem. Arsenal have got lots of cover on that kind of left-hand side. Luis Skelly, Calafiori are the left-back options, and Zinchenko's still there at the moment. You look at the centre-backs, you've got Gabriel, Saliba, Kivior stepped in at left centre-back at the back end of last season and done really well. But on the right side of that central defensive area, they're lacking a little bit. Ben White and Jurriën Timber have both had their injury problems over the last couple of seasons. To rely on one of them is a little bit risky, because it leaves the other one exposed and having to play every week. And then, as I mentioned, Tomiyasu at the moment is unfortunately nowhere to be seen. So I think getting in a right-sided centre-back makes a lot of sense. And Mosquera is someone that Arsenal like the look of and are willing to have a little bit of a gamble on, because I think they believe that in the next few years he can go on and be a real top centre-half. So I'm all for that signing. I think there's a limit with regards to what Arsenal should pay. I think anything above £25 million feels a little bit excessive given the situation that Valencia are in, but I'm confident that Arsenal will get the deal done for less than that, around about the 20 million euros mark. And if they do, that feels like really good business.
Yeah, so they're taking their time, Arsenal, but it does seem like they're putting together a good programme of reinforcements for the new season. 3 second places in a row. Harry Symeou, great to talk to you, mate.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a great show.
Cheers, Harry.
Thank you, mate. I just realised I said they're in the process of signing maybe not a first spine, but a backup spine.
Yeah, everyone needs a backup spine.
Put my backup spine out there. Maybe a rib cage or something. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, I need a break because I need a glass of water and to hose myself down. It's been a hot day. It is 8:29. Back soon. 8:32. Good evening. Hottest June day on record or something. Is absolutely baking, wasn't it? And it's just starting to cool off now, but probably not. Out of the Club World Cup, Inter Milan up against it against Fluminense. Ian Abrahams is watching.
Yeah, 32 gone. I just had a cooling break in North Carolina. It's Inter Milan 0, Fluminense 1. The goal scored by Canu after 3 minutes. John Arias ball in from the right-hand side, took a deflection of a defender, looped up in the air, and he headed it between the legs of the goalkeeper, Jan Sommer, who, by the way, was beaten a second or two ago as well. Another really good move. A shot this time from Arias, saved by Sommer. Only palmed it out, and the fullback Samuel Xavier from about 8 yards out just put it wide of the far post. Up the other end, the best chance for Inter Milan, who responded well actually after going a goal down, was from Federico Di Marco. A shot that was well saved by the goalkeeper for Fluminense, Fabio. Rory, you may be interested in him. He's 44 years old though, so maybe not fitting the Chelsea profile, but he did make a good save. Inter 0, Fluminense 1.
60 million, we'll take him. Thank you, Moose. Well, he could be in goal lining up for Chelsea next season. I don't think so. Now, we're just going to step away from the football for a second because we've been getting updates from the All England Club centre court. Katie Bolter targeting a place in round 2 at Wimbledon. Lisa O'Sullivan is watching.
And Katie Bolter is into round 2 with a 6-2, 3-6, 6-4 win over the number 9 seed Paula Badosa of Spain. And it was a confident performance in the end from the British number 2. And she, I think, outthought the Spaniard in that final game, who was serving to stay in the match. But it is Katie Bolter who moves forward and joins a whole host of British players after a very successful day at the All England Club. Sonia Cartel, British number 3, will move into the top 50 potentially with her win today. And we've got another 6 other players who have made it through as well. So it's been a pretty good day. We've got another 9 British players in action on day 2.
Busiest person at the All England Club, Lisa O'Sullivan. Thank you. Right, Transfer Insiders is heading into the pit lane. It's time for this.
Oi, that needs fixing, mate. Welcome to the talkSPORT garage.
Yeah, it's the Transfer Garage. Me and Rory are going to select 2 teams each that we think need a bit of work under the hood in this summer's transfer window, where they need to improve. Rory, do you want to go first or second? You've won the toss.
I'll opt to bowl first. Over to you.
Over to me. Okay, right. I'm going to start with Crystal Palace. So off the back of what's been the greatest day in their history, beating Manchester City in that cup final, first major trophy, still celebrating that. They'll play in the Europa League next season, although UEFA are doing their best to ruin any kind of celebrations for that, making it a right chore. There's loads of interest, as we've already talked about on this programme. Mark Gahey, Eberi Eze, and I think Daniel Munoz will get some interest as well later in the window, potentially Jean-Philippe Mateta. My view, I reckon they should let Gahey go. He's out of contract in 12 months. You get good money for him. You risk getting nothing for him down the track. And if he wants to go, let him go if someone's going to pay good money. We talked about maybe Tottenham would be a good link for that. I'd go and get the cash. I reckon you probably get 40, 45, even though he's in his last year of his contract. Brilliant defender. And then if you're going to sell Eze for, was it 68 million is the clause? You're going to get upwards of 100 million for 2 players that will not be at your club in a year one way or another. And then I think you can reinvest that money. So if you're losing Eze as a winger who can play in behind the striker, I think that Amari Hutchinson is a good option. I know he got relegated with Ipswich, but he showed his talent, scored a great goal against, was it against Chelsea?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, brilliant goal. And he's a young player. He's been involved in the under-21s before. He could play anywhere there, so I'd have him. But also Tyler Dibbling, who no one seems to be mentioning anymore, had that brilliant start for Southampton, but when they faded, he sort of faded. His confidence died under Ivan Juric. 20 million, you get him? Yeah, bring him in right wing. Crystal Palace love a winger, so I'd bring him in. And I'm going to go slightly left field. A defender for Ajax. They were the best defensive team in the Eredivisie last season. He was their best defender, Josip Sutulu. You remember him? Croatia defender, went to the World Cup semi-final. I'd line him up, I reckon, 25 million, probably prize him away from a Dutch club.
Mate, I like it. I like the work that you've done there. I do. And I don't feel like you've been ripped off either, which is very rare.
I'm very shrewd. I'm like Daniel Levy.
No, I like it. Very, very impressive. I mean, the club that I think needs to do some work fairly urgently is Newcastle United. Not necessarily because they don't have a good squad. They do have a good squad. It's just that their ambition has now gone sky high.
Yeah.
Like the belief around the club is significant, and they are now a major challenger to everybody that considers themselves top tier.
And they can't take a backward step.
They can't take a backward step. Once you get into the Champions League, that's your first hurdle. But what you then need to do is qualify for it again, launch a bid to do really well in it, because otherwise it's just an anomaly. Otherwise you're just a club that was in it a couple of years ago and then you're not in it anymore and you're almost forgotten. You need to become one of those established clubs. And I think what Newcastle United have done, particularly last season, it was sensational. Eddie Howe, he raised the tide there. I think you could easily argue that they have the best midfield in the league. You could easily argue that they have the best centre-forward in the league. And the expectation now has changed. So what they need to do is bring in players that can match and mirror that expectation, which at the moment I know they're trying. And they were heavily linked with Mbeumo, and it hasn't gone their way. They were heavily linked with Liam Delap, and it hasn't gone their way. They were heavily linked with João Pedro.
Why is it not going their way?
I think they're struggling to get players over the line. And
is it the location?
I think partly
overseas players want to be in London.
Yeah, I think partly it is. And look, I think it's a terrible outlook. I don't think it mirrors the reality of the situation. My wife's from the northeast. I think it's a beautiful part of the world. But Roy Keane spoke, didn't he, when he was at Sunderland? And he said that you just can't get the players to move there. You just can't get... He said, and even if you could... I think his quote was, even if you can convince the players, you can't convince the wags. It's very difficult to get players to move to the...
Middlesbrough, years ago, they built Rockcliffe Park, which is where they train.
It's beautiful,
golf
isn't it?
course there. It's beautiful. Spa hotel. Fly the players in, take them there, make them sign the contract, then take them to Middlesbrough.
Is that what they would do? Do you know what? There's been talk of ways to mitigate this, and I really don't like it. Like, I think there was talk at one point of maybe Sunderland actually having their training facilities in London and just playing the game.
I think Barrow do that. They train in Manchester.
Do they? I think that's appalling, because I think when you sign for a club, you're buying into the representation of the area. These clubs are institutions and representations of who they are and the people that they represent in the area. So I don't like that at all. But for one reason or another, Newcastle United have failed on various occasions to get players over the line, and their Champions League hopes will depend upon their transfer activity. Their Premier League hopes, sustaining top 4 qualification, maybe going one more and actually competing for the league title.
Can you give me 2 players that they should bring in?
I mean, I think what they need to do immediately, though, is it isn't necessarily an example of a player. It's an example of what a player represents. They need somebody to come in with Champions League experience. Do you know who I think would be quite an interesting signing for them? Jack Grealish.
Ooh,
Jack Grealish to Newcastle. I mean. Yeah. People would say that the vibrant nightlife on Tyneside might be a slight distraction for him. Might be a slight distraction for him. But I would say that
he would thrive in that kind of stadium.
So high, their fans would love him. You know, if you think about what Newcastle fans love, it's always been David Ginola and Peter Beardsley and
Gaza.
When I was young, Robert. Do you remember Laurent Robert? They've always loved that kind of player, haven't they? And I think Grealish is that. So I think bringing Grealish in would be brilliant for the dressing room, but also brilliant for the first team. So I'd say I'm going to go Grealish.
Grealish on loan or Grealish permanent?
I think sign him.
Yeah.
Look, I know he might be expensive and a lot of money, but it's changed down the back of the sofa for the PIF, isn't it?
That is true. Okay, we're going to take a quick breather. We'll come back to the transfer garage. You've had a goal at the Club World Cup. Ian Abrahams.
Inter Milan 0, Fluminense 2, is it? Or, I mean, it's a VAR check. No, it's 1-0. He has disallowed the goal. Total confusion about whether or not it was a goal. They lined up as if to take the kick. It was a lovely move, actually. It was a ball over on the far side on the right. It was floated into the middle, headed across goal for Ignacio to put into the back of the net from about 3 yards out. But he was obviously offside, but it did take a while, and there was confusion in the end as to whether or not it was a goal. Been disallowed, though. Remains Inter 0, Fluminense 1.
Cheers, Moose. So back to the transfer garage. You done on Newcastle?
Done on Newcastle, yeah. Who else have you got?
Aston Villa. So they're in the Europa League next season, and I think they need to go full Ange Postecoglou here.
They can win it.
That's the target.
They can win it.
Realistically, any of those leading English clubs in the Europa League can win it, as proved by the fact that it was an all-English final last season. So go and win it, get into the Champions League, win a trophy, which the fans would absolutely love. But it does look like they've got to sell, not because of PSR, because of UEFA's club cost rules. So the total expenditure of your wages, transfers, agents' fees has got to be capped at 70% of the club revenue. There's my football nerd off for you. Emi Martinez, we've already talked about. If you can get multi-millions for him, sell him, get rid of his wages. He's already said he wants to go. He waved goodbye at the end of the season. Luca Digne's 32, left back, 1 year left on his deal. Cash in, get whatever you can. And Ollie Watkins, I already told you, he's 30 at Christmas. The rumours are going to follow him. I think he wants to be elsewhere. Let him go. And go and buy Marcus Rashford, who's younger, He might cost you a bit more in wages, but I think he has the potential to be better. His ceiling's definitely higher. And I would get a backup left-back, Harrison Burrows from Sheffield United.
Nice.
Who had a really good season, obviously didn't get promoted, missed out on that. They've just sacked their manager, so he might want to move. Relatively cheap.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go for Tottenham Hotspur. I think that they were appalling last season, let's be totally honest. They had the best season that they've had in my lifetime, but they were appalling. And I'm not taking anything away from them. It almost, if anything, I'm accentuating quite how brilliant that night.
Like a David Copperfield trick, wasn't it?
It's like that night that they had in Spain should go down as one of the best nights in history. Like, it's almost better that it was all off on a foundation of terrible football and like the worst ever season. They went and did something like mesmerising, something historic, something that has eclipsed anything that Arsenal have done in recent years. In fact, maybe even ever.
Just digging all the London clubs, aren't you?
That's it. No, but that's what Tottenham did. I don't like celebrating Tottenham. Far from it. I have absolutely no love for that club. But what I would never do is sneer at silverware. What I would never do is belittle the significance of winning European silverware, beating Manchester United in a European final in Bilbao. It's the stuff dreams are made of.
Yeah.
And Ange Postecoglou made that dream a reality. But what they need to do now is they have a choice. They either become the team that won European silverware, or they become the team that lost 23 games in the same season. And this is a fork in the road. They choose a path here. And if they do not restructure that team, particularly the defence, they will take the wrong turn. And I think that what they need to do is go and sign a top-tier player. You know, nobody with potential, nobody who might be able to do it in this league. I'm talking clear-cut, best-in-class, big-buck signing. And for that, I think they go and sign Mark Gahey. I think throw the money at Crystal Palace, do whatever it takes to bring in England's best defender. That's probably the least controversial thing that you will ever hear said on talkSPORT. Mark Gahey these days is the best English centre-half in the world. Like, there is nobody in the league that competes with him.
Spurs have had that before. I mean, the fans won't like me reminding them Sol Campbell was theirs.
Yeah, no, and they pretend that Ledley King was once that as well. They like to pretend.
If he could have trained, I would let him.
All that stuff, yeah. But Mark Gahey is most certainly that. So if they really do want to define themselves as a Champions League club, they need to go and sign a player that has proven and doing it at the top tier.
Romero out. 45 million.
I mean, I'm talking
go and spend an extra 15 to get Gahey.
Or dream world, you keep Romero as well, and you bring in Gahey, and you have a bit of competition and depth in the squad. You have a situation where you've got Van der Ven, top tier Van der Ven, Romero, very good player, top tier Mark Gahey, and again you give Thomas Frank a little bit of depth.
And all of a sudden, that Tottenham engine is purring. That was the Transfer Garage. You're listening to Transfer Insiders on talkSPORT with Ladbrokes. 18+, begambleaware.org. Welcome back to Transfer Insiders here on talkSPORT. Before we get into our Harry Kane chat, won't he return to the Premier League this season, next season, ever? Don't forget this Saturday, live from Manchester, the ex-super lightweight contender Jack Catterall moves up to welterweight up against the unbeaten Harlem Eubank. Should be a terrific fight. It's available live only on DAZN. Sign up at DAZN.com/boxing. Remember, DAZN is DAZN. Right, now, we're going to talk about Harry Kane because he's out of the Club World Cup and absolutely banging in the goals. He scored 48 goals in 59 club and country appearances this season, but he turns 32 in a month. Now, he's got that monkey off his back. He finally is a winner, won the Bundesliga with Bayern Munich. Could someone poach him, bring him back to the Premier League? Would that be a risk at all?
I mean, he would immediately elevate every single team in the Premier League. I genuinely mean that. There isn't a team in the world that isn't a better team thanks to the brilliance of Harry Kane. Like, Harry Kane is a truly wonderful, elite-level, top-tier, brilliant footballer. You're actually witnessing greatness with Harry Kane. Like, I feel like history is going to be very unkind to him.
Why?
Because he hasn't won a Premier League title. I think it's as simple as that. You know, when we talk about the best ever Premier League strikers, and whoever you think it is, if you think it's Thierry Henry, if you think it's Wayne Rooney, if you think it's Sergio Aguero, if you think it's Didier Drogba, if you think it's Eric Cantona, your logic for all of them, there's almost a precursor where they've won it.
Yeah.
But people can be very snide about people that haven't won. Like, for example, I think Steven Gerrard is elite, one of the best to have ever done it, ever. From any country, in any conversation, the answer is Steven Gerrard. But because he never won the Premier League, people will use that unfairly and incorrectly.
Stick to beat him with.
Exactly. And I think it's the same for Harry Kane. But I just don't think that there's a club in the world that he needs to move to now. He's playing for a team that are capable of winning silverware. He's playing for a team that are capable of winning top-tier European silverware. He may well come away from a Club World Cup with another piece of silverware. Does he want to become a bit of a journeyman? Does he want to become a player that kind of flits between clubs? I mean, part of what made him such an icon at Tottenham was the fact that he hung about for so long.
Doesn't he want that Premier League record?
What, the 260, the Alan Shearer? What's worth more?
Well, if you've never won anything and people use that as a stick to beat you with, you've never won a team trophy, you've never won an international trophy, and then you win one, tick, done. You don't need to go and win 3, 4, 5. It's not the Formula 1 World Championship. How many have you won? 7. Well, I've got 4. You've won it. They can't now have a pop at you. So surely you come back and you go, selfishly, I want that record.
I wonder. Look, I don't know enough about the culture of German football, but the records that he has broken since he's been there, the performances that he's put in. Like, I remember a few years ago when Kane was at Tottenham, we used to talk about Robert Lewandowski, and we used to talk about Lewandowski as being one of the best strikers in the world because of the records, because of what he was doing in the Bundesliga, the numbers. Harry Kane has made light work of those numbers.
Yeah, Gerd Müller, Ulf Kirsten,
Harry Kane has made light work. And, you know, last year when it wasn't going well for Bayern, the German support there blamed basically everyone apart from the English striker. Like, they love him. And I don't, like I say, I don't know enough about the culture, but he may have the potential, if he were to stay for another 3 years, win some silverware, win a European Cup, of going down as not only Tottenham's best ever player of the Premier League era, but also a Bayern Munich great, a legend. Is he good enough? Is his record good enough to somehow force his way into the conversation of an all-time Bayern Munich 11? Is he better than Giovanni Elber and Thomas Müller and whoever else has led the line for Bayern? Like, I feel like that kind of legacy, you go down as a Bundesliga great, you go down as a Bayern Munich great, and you go down as a Tottenham great. Is that better than going down as a Tottenham great, but there's an edge to it because he left before they won silverware? Then he had a couple of good seasons at Bayern, and then he goes and has a couple of good seasons maybe where? What Premier League team potentially? A couple of good seasons at Newcastle, something like that.
How long can he stay at that level where he's scoring 10 to 15? Even if he has a drop-off with age, natural, but he's still banging in 10 or 15.
I think Harry Kane will be an elite level striker for another 5 years. Because he's not the kind of player that's...
So he could do 2 more years at Bayern, end his contract, and then choose where he goes.
Yeah.
And come to the best team in England and go, well, I want to come and win Premier Leagues with you, but also get my record.
If the role in the team is there for him, because simply being the best doesn't mean that you definitely get in the team or a team wants to sign you. For example, if Erling Haaland... Well, of course, Harry Kane is a sensational footballer and far better, far superior to anything that Erling Haaland could ever offer. If you've got Erling Haaland, you probably don't have Harry Kane as well.
Yeah.
So there has to be.
Imagine that.
Then
The two up front. Who have you got?
Well,
Erling and Harry.
I don't know. I mean, I think they made a mistake, Man City, all those years ago, not signing Kane when they could have done. But they did their best. But realistically, how important is the Premier League record, the 260 Shearer record, which he could get? How important is that record, in your opinion, to the legacy of Harry Kane?
I think it's probably his top priority for the rest of his career.
Really?
I genuinely do, yeah. Because he's done the one thing that people could insult him about or question him about. He's done it.
Well, also, it would eradicate the disrespect that I felt that he was shown when people would suggest that he's not in the conversation for being the best because he's never won it.
Yeah.
It would dismiss that argument if he were the superior goal scorer. If he were the top goal scorer of the league, it wouldn't matter if you've won it or not. You'd say, well, he scored more goals in the league than anyone else.
There will be people listening going, Premier League record, what about, you go back the all-time history.
Yeah.
It's not just since 1992.
No, it's hard for us. I can't start talking about Dixie Dean.
No, of course. And Jimmy Greaves and all of those guys, and I don't have those names to hand. But actually, he doesn't live in that era either. He lives in this era. Yeah. And in this era, people talk about Alan Shearer's record, and Alan Shearer has gone on to be a really highly regarded pundit off the back of
Premier
his
top
record.
Ever goal scorer.
If he didn't have that record, he'd just maybe be another pundit, but he's the guy.
Just for the game then, can you think of a club where he would immediately get... It's not about is he better than the forward in the team, because obviously he is, but everything has to match up. The wage structure needs to match up. The availability in the squad needs to match up. Is there a club where the size of the club is big enough to accommodate him, but they don't already have a striker?
It's Man United. But he's not going to go from Champions League, Bayern Munich, to nothing, one game a week, Man United. We're going to have to take a break because it's half-time in the Club World Cup. Ian Abrahams is watching for us.
Inter Milan 0, Fluminense 1. They led in the Brazilian side since the 3rd minute when Cano headed the ball home. Arias' ball in from the right-hand side, flicked off a defender, looped up in the air. Defence was nowhere, and 3 yards out, Cano headed between Jan Sommer's legs and into the back of that. Could have been 2-0 as well. Ignacio had a header, a goal ruled out for offside. At the other end, 2 efforts by DeMarco, saved by 44-year-old goalkeeper Fabio, who hasn't put a foot wrong. And just by the way, in your discussion about Alan Shearer and Harry Kane, Alan Shearer is also a Premier League title winner ahead of Harry Kane as things stand right now. Meanwhile, over in Charlotte at the Club World Cup, it's Inter 0, Fluminense 1.
Ian Abrahams is so right. He's rapping me across the knuckles right there. That's kind of the point, though, isn't he? So if he does come back to the Premier League chasing that record, he can't just come back and go, well, I'll have a few seasons at Bournemouth because they might not get relegated and I'll tuck in 15 goals a season and amble my way there. He's going to come in and go in, obviously I want to win the Premier League as well.
Yeah, I think the only 2 clubs that realistically he could house him would be Manchester City and Liverpool in their current guys. Because I would say Arsenal, obviously the answer is Arsenal. But that's never going to happen because of his Tottenham legacy.
No. Well, there's that photo.
Yeah, and Sol Campbell did do that.
Oh, don't. Come on. I already mentioned it once. We already lost Tottenham fans in their droves. How much does he command if someone tries to bid for Harry Kane this summer? Bear in mind, Bayern paid, I think, 82 up front for him 2 years ago.
No, this is the same, if not more. He hasn't become a worse player.
But he has got 2 years older.
He has, but he's got 2 years. He's now got a trophy and he's got European experience and he's got more proven. His CV has enhanced. He's now gone from a player that was doing the business at Tottenham to a player that has done the business in the Bundesliga and the Premier League. And yeah, okay, he's 2 years older, but I believe that because of the way that he plays football and the way that he looks after himself, he will be an elite level footballer for at least 5 more years. Like Harry Kane,
do you
should
see
go
that
down as a Premier League great? He won't at the moment. He won't.
Because, as Ian Abraham says, he hasn't won it.
He hasn't won it. And the players that have won it will always be more iconic. Wayne Rooney will be ahead of him in this conversation. Alan Shearer will be ahead of him in this conversation. Thierry Henry will be ahead of him in this conversation. Didier Drogba, in my opinion, although this one is more debatable, in my opinion, Didier Drogba will be ahead of him. Didier Drogba not only won a league, but retained a league. It's iconic stuff, historic stuff. But if you remove all of the context, in terms of just natural ability, in terms of just being a gifted centre-forward, I think Harry Kane is comparable to the very best who have ever played the game.
Got about 40 seconds on this one. Do you see a time when Harry Kane might say, I need to stop playing international football to prolong my club
Absolutely
career?
not. Absolutely not. He's patriotic. He leads the line for England with passion, poise, and I think he is a brilliant representation of an international footballer. I think he'll adopt the David Beckham mentality. You know, when David Beckham finished playing football, but he said he will never retire from international football. David Beckham is available.
Still take the call.
David Beckham is available for international football now because he loved playing for his country and he's a patriotic man. Harry Kane, I believe, will adopt a similar policy.
Yeah, what was it that Jamie Carragher said? He says you don't leave football, the football leaves you.
Leave the football before the football leaves you.
Or maybe Harry Kane will do the opposite to that. Okay, right, we need to take a break. We're coming up to 9 o'clock on the Transfer Insiders. Chris Latcham and Rory Jennings with you for one more hour here on talkSPORT. Don't go anywhere.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
Hello and welcome to Wimbledon Unfiltered with Nick Kyrgios, brought to you by talkSPORT and Good Trouble. I'm Gordon Smart, the YTS Jim White. And joining me today, of course, is Nick Kyrgios, 7-time ATP winner. All right, Nick?
Gordon, good to see you again.
Good to see you, my man. Right, our guest today is not only a big star of football, he's a wonderful co-commentator. In fact, he's the most enthusiastic man on the planet. He's like the ice cream aisle of the supermarket, this guy. He's phenomenal. It's Sunderland, St Johnstone and Scotland star, Ali McCoy.
Gordon, great to see you, Nick. Nice to see you, mate.
Ali, how are you?
Lovely.
Good to
We're
see
all
you.
good, we're all good. So make sure you like the talkSPORT page and subscribe on YouTube. Right, Nick, getting started. I think it is the hottest day, 35 degrees. Is that a help or a hindrance, particularly to the Brits playing?
You know, I think look, there's enough pressure on the Brits to do well, you know, during these couple of weeks, and it's been a good starting day for the Brits. Only one going down so far. Fernley played Fonseca, which is not really a surprise. Obviously, Fonseca is going to take over the tennis world pretty soon, but the Brits they've come out flying, and I think, look, it probably helps them. You know, they grew up on grass. You know, not many players are comfortable on the grass, so when it's hot, I think the Brits do love it.
Now, here's a quick question, if I may ask you. See, at Wimbledon in particular, is this a good tournament to play the Brits because of the pressure on them?
Look, I think, the Brits don't mind playing at home. I think, you know, Jack Draper is going to I think he's going to contend for Grand Slams, and Wimbledon's probably his best chance to do that. But I think having that home crowd is special. You know, most of these guys train at Wimbledon, and they're around it a lot, so it's like playing in their backyard. And I think, you know, most of the time they do deal with the pressure pretty well. You know, that's a great question because I actually didn't enjoy playing in my backyard so much. It's a lot of pressure, and sometimes you put too much pressure on yourself. But right now they've handled it pretty good.
Alcaraz, you know, again, what a performer he is, incredible athlete. But you know, Ali's talking. The game's still going on as we speak. By the time this goes out, it'll be finished. But how difficult is it when you have a proper test in your first game? Is that kind of tricky to carry through, physically for the rest of the tournament?
Yeah, I think historically Alcaraz gets better as the tournament goes on. Some of those earlier rounds, he's not also like as locked in as he would be later on in the tournament. But Fognini, we don't know how much tennis he's got left, and he's no shock to an upset. He loves playing, he loves being the underdog, and he's beaten guys like Rafa and Nadal before. So to see he's giving Alcaraz some problems isn't surprising. But as I said, the temperature's hot. Alcaraz's first match, the expectations of trying to come back and win and defend that title, it's not easy. It's not simple. That's why we love sport. It's not just played on the paper. So, Alcaraz, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets it done, but Fognini can give anyone trouble. So,
would it be wrong to say you see more upsets here earlier than most tournaments?
Yeah, you're probably right. Historically you see upsets early because the top players put so much pressure on themselves to perform. I've crashed out here a bunch of times early because, the week before I'm trying to do everything so right, so diligently, and I get out there and I just trip over myself because it's just too much pressure.
But I think that's about you though, isn't it? Like, I think when you try to be too professional, it removes the bit that makes you special.
Yeah, I think Gordon's known me for 2 weeks.
Don't be that guy. It's not you. But I
know
if that translates to your game, Ali. Right? You played with so many characters. Gaza's the obvious one who springs out. But if you try and control him, do you get the best out of him? If you know what I mean. If you suppress that magic.
Absolutely. It's a great question, Gordon, and I always remember Walter, who's the best manager I ever worked with, Nick, and he said something. He was talking to, believe it or not, Billy Connolly, the Scottish comedian, the great Scottish comedian, without doubt the greatest comedian ever lived in my opinion. But anyway, that's another story. And Billy Connolly was talking to Walter, and he asked him about Gascoigne. Gascoigne was tremendous footballer, but different. And he said to Walter, how are you getting on with Gascoigne? And Walter said to him, he said he's this, that, he's the next thing, but he's a wonderful player. And Billy Connolly said to remember, he said, you've got to live with a talent, right? Don't try and do anything to suppress it. Yeah. He says, let the talent live, let the talent breathe, within reason, but don't try and curtail it, just let it go. And Walter did, and I honestly believe, you're asking that question, I think we get the best footballer out of Gascoigne throughout his career.
100%.
He was a magician, absolute magician. What a footballer! So I mean, and it's funny because particularly with management and team events, particularly football, somebody will say the manager and the coach has got to treat everybody the same, Nick, but they don't.
No.
I don't care what MD says. They don't. You might have the same rules and regulations, but people are different.
Yeah.
So you can't really treat people the same. You couldn't treat Gascoigne the same way as you could treat the next, Big Goffey, for example, or something like that. So, but you've got to be clever about it, and Walter handled it brilliantly.
They say the same about Andy Goldstein at talkSPORT, don't they?
Oh, that man's a law in himself.
How would you have managed Nick? How would you manage Nick?
With some degree,
coach them.
With some degree of difficulty, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing, though. You've got to let him go.
Yeah.
Because once you bring him in here and not let him come out and expand, you're not going to get the same person. You're not going to get the same player. You're not going to get the same talent. That's my bet.
That's my favourite photo up on the wall.
Is that your favourite picture?
I've had a quick look and there's some fantastic pics up there, Nick, but that's my favourite as well.
Well, that's what I'm most famous for. That's why I'm here talking.
Which one was that then, Nick, for anybody who doesn't know in talkSPORT?
I played against Nadal in Indian Wells, and that racket, that nearly went over the fence. I got in trouble for that.
Ali, here's a little question for you. A very quick quiz. I know you do this a lot on talkSPORT, right? I'm going to give you a multiple choice option here.
Okay.
Nick Kyrgios is the most fined man in tennis. Do his fines, similar to you when you were at Rangers right now.
I love it how we're laughing.
Right? The most fined man in tennis. Was it?
Imagine having that in your CV in the first place. I love it.
Was it £250,000, £500,000, or £1 million? What level of fee has he paid in fines?
Oh, it can't be £1 million. I'm going to go right in the middle.
You're going to go $500,000?
Aye.
Nick Kyrgios?
It's $250,000.
$250,000.
That's in GBP though. That's pounds sterling.
Yeah, it's about $500,000 AED.
And
I'm not proud of it.
How many of those fines do you think you deserved?
All of them.
Right, let's put it back on Ali McCoist.
All of them.
Alistair McCoist,
yes.
What's the most you were fined in your playing career?
Oh,
bear in mind I worked in newspapers, I know the answer to this.
Graham used to fine me on a regular basis.
Mr. Sunis?
Yeah, I used to get fined a couple of weeks' wages. I remember I got fined a couple of weeks' wages with Gerante. And we won the league 3 weeks later up in Aberdeen. And young Ferguson get fined as well, 2 weeks' wages. So we'd won the league, we're coming back in the bus for Aberdeen. And I was a little bit older than Fergie and Gerante, and he came back and he pulled the two of them up and he said, he's obviously in a good mood because they won the league. And he says, right, you two, he says, well done. He said, you can get your money back if you stay out of trouble for 6 months, right? And they were like delighted. He called me up. He says, you can get your money back if you get married. He did. He said, you can get your 2 weeks. I said, keep it. And that was it. So I never got my 2 weeks money.
Got married 3 times.
So he owes me double. Good point, Gordon.
Thank you
just
very
the twice. Calm down now.
Sorry. I was thinking ahead.
What inside
crystal ball there.
Nick, I should say, right, I got fined when I worked in newspapers because we worked with talkSPORT very closely, and I had the record for missing the most consecutive flights from City to Scotland.
Well, that's why I took a train today.
That's why I took a train. Ali broke my record.
Oh, yeah.
7 consecutive missed flights.
Incredible.
Anyway, yeah, naughty behaviour. Right, let's talk about the tennis because that's why we're here. Taking us through some of these then, Nick, today. You've already mentioned a couple of them, but big shocks, Medvedev.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Medvedev, I think today was the first ever time he lost first round of a Grand Slam. And Benjamin Bonzi's someone that's a dark horse. You know, no one really wants to play him. I've played him at a Grand Slam. He's a tough competitor. And he's actually very handy on grass. Mm-hmm. You know, I always knew that was going to be a tricky match for Medvedev. But, you know, seeing a seed like that fall on day one is obviously a big shock to the tennis world. Obviously, Tsitsipas as well. You know, these are guys that we look at as contenders for Grand Slams. And going down in round one is never easy. So, you know, I look at those. There's a couple big matches. Obviously, you said Alcaraz is still on the court at the moment. You know, watched him play. I think he'll come through that. But I'm not sure if we've got an update on Holger Rune. He was 2 sets to love up, and then that was 2 sets all. You know, Nicholas Jarry is, you know, he's 6'7", big serve. He's very dangerous. I think he's made the quarterfinals here before, so that's a dangerous one as well. And look, the one of the day for me that I'd say is one to watch is Taylor Fritz versus Mpechi Perricard. You know, this guy has the biggest serve on planet. You know, he serves.
How fast is it just now?
240 kilometers an hour. So like this guy's serve is dangerous. So that one there's probably the one to watch. I mean, on the women's side, the seeds have come through pretty easily. The only one to go down is Ostapenko, but pretty much the rest of the seeds, Sabalenka got through quite easily. But the seeds have had pretty smooth sailing on the women's side.
Do you know what I was noticing about in the women's side? I thought this was a pretty telling fact. I don't think Andy's retained Wimbledon title since 2016. Serena Williams.
Been a lot of names, isn't there, on the trophy?
And I thought that was quite, significant.
Well, saying that, I mean, I feel like the women's game right now, especially on the grass, it's quite open. You couldn't really tell. I don't think anyone has a clear favourite on the grass. You know, there's so many upsets, but you know, apart from Sabalenka, Coco Gauff trying to find her feet, but. I mean, as you said, the women's game is kind of crying out for someone to kind of take a stranglehold of it and really be dominating the tour. But you know, I think there might be a new champion this year again. To be honest,
there's so much attention on Raducanu in this country, isn't there? She got off to an amazing start a few years ago, but had a bumpy ride since, a lot of other trouble. But she's also got a bit of a love interest, from what we gather, Nick.
Well, I don't know.
Come on, tell us.
No, I don't know. I think it's a love triangle. I think Draper, Alcaraz, and Raducanu. They're fighting over Raducanu. I think. I'm not sure. But
this is the stuff we want.
This is the good stuff.
This is why I'm here, Nick.
Does that make a distraction for her, or do you think she's completely focused on the tennis?
Yeah, I think the
she
outside.
Looks happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's making her happy. I don't know, but I'm like, I just think that the tennis world loves a love story, and they love to try and put two together. But look, Raducanu, I think she's the #1 British female tennis player at the moment, so she's doing fairly well. Obviously, winning a Grand Slam at 19 is never easy. It comes with a lot of expectation on the outside world, but. As long as she's happy, I mean, as you said, there's so much pressure that comes with being the #1 player and playing at Wimbledon. So hopefully she can find her feet. I mean, imagine her and Jack Draper winning the women's title and the men's title, and that would be something.
And it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Jack, I don't know, Ali, if I said to you, I worked with Jack when he was a younger lad.
Ah, right.
And it's amazing, similar sort of thing to Andy, where he's just suddenly filled out, and become a big, strong operator now. But he's 5th seed, right, this time around?
Yeah.
Well, he's #4, isn't he?
Well, #4, yeah. He's just a great athlete, big lefty, and I think he does have natural instincts on the grass. I think now making that run at the US Open in the semi-final, and then I think he needed to get some of those results under his belt, so now he truly believes that he can contend and he can take it to guys like Sinner and Alcaraz. I mean, these guys, they play with so much confidence, especially best out of 5 sets, potentially playing for 4 or 5 hours. I think Draper needed to get his physicality up, but he's a genuine threat, in my opinion.
I find the physicality thing quite interesting. You mentioned 6'7". What they say in football, Ali, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the amount of fight in the dog. And you played with a few angry wee terriers in your time. But in tennis, Nick, you 6'4"?
Yeah.
How much of an advantage can that be, that extra power, that extra strength you've talked about?
I mean, I think if you look at the average height of the people in the top 10, it's about 6'2". So, I mean, look, it does help. Like, you know, you got a big serve, but these guys move so well. You look at Alcaraz and Sinner; these guys are so fast, and they move out of the corners well. And I'm 30 years old, and I've, you know, had a lot of late nights in the pub that they haven't had. So I definitely can feel that out of the corners. I can feel the beers for the next day. But, you know, these guys are such great movers. So, you know, the game's, you know, they hit the ball so hard, but the courts have slowed down. So there's more emphasis on these guys moving side to side, and they're freaks in nature, honestly.
Is it such an obvious thing to say, Nick, that the biggest advantage in height would be the serve?
Definitely. You know, I think you look at some of the players that have come and gone on the tour, that the taller they are, the biggest serve, but genuinely they lack in movement, they lack on returns, where, you know, Alcaraz, Sinner, Federer, these guys have all court games where, you know, someone like me, sometimes I can't, you know, put a ball in the court.
That was your big asset, though, wasn't it? Yourself.
My serve, it was, yeah. Well, it is. I'm still playing.
Still playing. I know we talk about that. But, I mean, what were you getting up to? How many kilometres an hour?
About 230, 235, yeah.
What about you, Ali? What have you got in the locker?
Not quite that.
No.
I mean, I used to play in
underarm.
Used to play in the clay up in Whitemoss and East Kilbride. I'm not sure I reached that speed. I've got to be quite honest with you.
Were you a decent tennis player?
As an average, very average. I've got to be very careful what I say. Some of the boys will be watching this. No, I was very average at tennis, but I loved it. That was in the summer. In the summer, when the football season finished, bang, tennis, golf. That was it. Yeah. And during the winter months, it was football.
Who's the best? Alan Hansen was a good tennis player, wasn't he?
Excellent golfer as well. Gary Mack, excellent golfer.
Yeah.
David Cooper was a brilliant tennis player.
Was he?
Oh, brilliant tennis
Looked
player.
like a tennis player.
Oh, he did. You know, he got a bit of class about him, you know.
Yeah. He had the right clothes for it.
He did.
Unlike you in your shell suit.
He looked the part, didn't he?
Tesco bag.
My wee knobbly knees. I could never handle it.
And again, looking back at the tennis there, you're talking about. I think that's a really good point Ali makes actually about how many different names are on the trophy. Do you think that era of dominance might be over in women's tennis after the Williams sisters?
It's an interesting question because I think it's genuinely the same culprits at the semi-finals. You got Sabalenka's been so dominant now for the last couple of years. Coco Gauff's finding her feet. I mean, Swiatek, her dominance at the French Open, has been there as well. But I think we are falling into that kind of dominance on the men's side a little bit now. I mean, I think every tournament, as long as Sinner and Alcaraz are healthy, we even see guys like Djokovic falling to these guys pretty much every week. So they just move with such confidence now. And I think my call would be Sabalenka. I think she's really got the potential to take over the two on every surface. I mean, she serves amazing. She hits big. She's got good intensity. And she's got that energy where I feel like when she walks onto the court, she's already winning these matches. Girls don't really believe that they can win. So I think Sabalenka has the potential to be that dominant player.
Talking about dominance, will we ever see, or have we ever seen, and please tell me, dominance on a surface like Nadal and Clay? I mean,
I don't think we'll ever see that again.
It was obscene, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that was ridiculous. I had the chance of playing Nadal on clay courts in Rome one year, and I couldn't walk the next day. Like, I'm not even joking. We played for about 3 hours, and I woke up next day and my hamstring was like so sore. I was like, if I'd won that match, there's no way I could play today. So the level of physicality that Nadal brought was different, and I think we'll never see someone like that ever dominate in any sport. I'm not talking just in tennis. I think we'll never see someone dominate on a surface or have that period of like, no one believed they could win.
Do you think punters understand the level of punishment that goes through the body? There's that book, isn't it? It's called The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah. Right? But I remember Andy Murray, I think he lost 9 of his 10 toenails when he won his first major. I mean, there's a punishment on the body involved in playing Nadal on clay.
Well, as you said, Andy Murray is someone that, he's probably one of the best tennis players to ever play. He's probably in top 5 for me all time. And you look at now, he's got a metal hip. He's got, he can barely walk without pain. So he's the proof in the pudding. He's someone that did everything right, ticked every box. Barely drunk, did all the fitness, did all the right things. And now he's at the end of his career, he struggles to walk. So
amazing, isn't it?
And Ali came in today after his 555-mile cycle.
Dear, that was
like
tough.
John Wayne with a stone in his shoe.
I feel I'm embarrassed to say that was tough after what these boys go through. But I think did Andy not lose 5 Australian Open finals as well?
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of Wimbledon. he different credit. I can remember him winning the US Open. I remember him because it was later at night over, and I remember watching it in the house. Fantastic. I mean, he
was right there.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable sportsman.
Without Novak, Federer and Nadal, Andy Murray would be the greatest tennis player to ever play.
And it's the resilience Ali mentions to come back from that kind of defeat, because you talked about it as well. Wimbledon final. I think you said to me that there isn't a day goes by where you don't replay a little bit of it in your head. Is that something that you can eventually see yourself? I mean, you've got another couple of seasons to give it a crack, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think as long as if I make another final and I win one, great. But it's something. Every time I step on the court, I think about that one match. It's like everything I ever worked for was in that match. And if you win Wimbledon, your tennis immortality. No one can tell me anything ever again. But I still have to deal with all the still.
See that match, when you get into that match against one of the greats, arguably the greatest. I think he's still is. He needs one more to. He's joint with Margaret Court at the moment.
He's 24.
Right, so he needs one more. What's your psyche? I mean, is there any doubt you think I'm playing the best in the business here, or do you try and?
Well, I'd beaten him twice beforehand.
I know that.
So I'd won 5 sets in a row, and I didn't even think about that. I don't know why. I should have been walking past him like arrogantly saying, "This guy can't even win a set."
Did you not kick his bottles over though?
No, that was against Nadal. But I'd won 5 sets in a row against Novak Djokovic, and I don't know what happened. An hour and a half went by, and I was down 2-1. I was like, "What's happened?" Like I was in complete control, but. He's not that bad. He's a pretty good tennis player. So.
Yeah. And you've beaten all of those 4 great players you mentioned. Yeah. It's a good title to have that as well, isn't it? Not many. How many have done that? In the modern
I think
game?
there might be like 17 or 18 all time that have done it.
I wonder if it's the same for you, Ali. Is there a game that is still in the back of your mind, particularly for Scotland? I mean, sorry to mention it, but Euro '96.
That's the one.
Because you were battering
England. That's the one.
Sorry for our English listeners.
That's definitely the one. I don't know. It's the old, if you're anti all this, carry on and be your uncle. The whole, but the missed penalty to Gary, my roommate. And there's kind of no day goes by you don't think about that as well. Gary struck the penalty, Seaman made a great save, and the rest was history. Gascoigne goes up and scores that great goal. But we honestly believe that if the penalty goes in, we actually win the game. But hey, but it's amazing. You go back, it's still eats away.
So there's no hope for me then.
No hope, I appreciate because I'm going to tell you, that was 30 years ago, so there's no hope.
Where do you think that stands, though, Ali? Is a Wimbledon final is to get that far in any kind of sport? That's a huge achievement for this.
It's
man,
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
We were there today and watching that level of talent, and as Nick correctly says, we've arguably seen. And I remember reading, I read Agassi's book. I loved Agassi's book, and I remember watching Agassi get interviewed, and he said the exact same as Nick. He says if Andy Murray played in a different era, he'd be one of the greatest players that ever. I mean, he still is one of the greatest players of the game. But he can argue. You can argue he's a little bit unlucky to play in that era. But if you asked him, I bet he'd just say it was an absolute joy and a privilege to play in that era with those guys. I mean, some of the finals, some of the entertainment he's given us Scots boys in particular.
Unreal.
It's amazing.
Do you know, Ali, one thing I was going to say to you as well is that they're special moments to watch, but you had your teammates around you to enjoy it with, right? But the psychology of being on your own for 4 or 5 hours, that's a different level, isn't it? Do you think you could have done that? You probably got it as a professional athlete, but it's a different thing.
It's a different psyche. Different psyche. And that question, I love. That's why I love watching the Ryder Cup, for example. I love watching the responsibility that golfers seem to have, not wanting to let anybody else down. You know, and it must be the same in the tennis international tournaments as well. You represent your nation. You know, there's a different kind of responsibility. You don't want to let you don't want to let anybody else down. You're in there to win it for yourself normally in a tournament, but all of a sudden you represent your nation, represent everything in the country. It's a different kind of pressure.
It certainly is.
Great.
Right, before we wrap then, boys, Nick, tomorrow looking ahead, anything you'd like to pick out for the men's singles?
Let's have a look here. Let's go down.
I think they might have disappeared. They've gone.
Well, I've got 2 here. The 2 matches that I've got here is, I think Tommy Paul probably, can we have more?
Berrettini's playing tomorrow as well.
I'm not sure.
They've all disappeared off that. They've all disappeared off that. Okay. When does Jack play, by the way?
He'll play tomorrow. Yeah.
So again, for anybody who's not too familiar with Jack, what do you expect? Like you say, big, powerful left-hander.
Yeah, I think that the solution for Jack to really compete for one of these Grand Slams is making sure the job gets done quite early in the first couple of rounds. You don't want to be out on court for 3-4 hours in the earlier rounds and take a physical toll, especially when guys like Alcaraz and Sinner in the draw, you want to get off the court as quick as possible.
He's struggled a bit with that, hasn't he? He's been sick on.
I was actually calling that match, when he was vomiting on the court against Sinner, and that was something that I'd never really seen before. So, if he's got over those physical struggles, that would be my advice to him, is try and deal with these earlier rounds in pretty quick fashion, and then just prepare.
Get them through quick. Right, so go on, Nick. Pick us a couple out tomorrow then. So Ali can have a little flutter.
Yes. So I can put a couple of my hard-earned pounds on here.
We talked about we've got wages, about 140 grand.
We've got a bit of a British battle, Dan Evans and Jay Clark. That's an interesting one because, Dan Evans was in the press conference the other day and he got emotional.
He did,
didn't he?
Saw it.
Yeah, and that's pretty close to me because I was really good friends with Dan Evans, through my career, and he always had the question mark over his head. Does he love tennis? Does he give enough to the game? And to see him emotional like that, and as you said, letting people down, that's been a big issue for him. So I think that kind of answers all the questions, as in like he does care and he wants to have good results. So playing another Brit, Jay Clark, I'm assuming got a wild card, into the tournament. So that's a bit of a leveler. You never want to play a good mate or someone that plays for the same country. It's going to be an interesting one, that one there, probably.
Good stuff. Any final thoughts from you, Alistair?
Listen, I'll be tuned in for the next 2 weeks. I can tell you, Gordon, thoroughly enjoyed today. It was just, as I said earlier, it's a marvellous spectacle. It's great to go there. The crowd were fantastic. But more importantly, the tennis was brilliant.
It's great.
Brilliant.
And Ali, you're on the wireless in the morning.
I'm on the old-fashioned wireless tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, talkSPORT with Jeff.
Bed by 7:30.
I'm not sure you two will be up listening to it, but I'll guess you might not be.
Bed by 7:30, Alistair?
Maybe.
Sensible.
No, come to the Dog and Fox. Have a favour.
He doesn't need that kind of invitation.
I don't need that encouragement, believe me.
Ali, it's great to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks.
Brilliant to see you.
Thanks very much. Lovely to see you.
Nick Kyrgios, great to see you. We're off to the pub next. You're watching Wimbledon Unfiltered with Nick Kyrgios in partnership with Good Trouble and talkSPORT. We'll be back tomorrow. Come and join us then.
Not just her, but the whole squad are underperforming.
I've been there, I've been that statistic. I think it's something like 1 million girls in the UK drop out of sport every year.
Hello and welcome back to the Kickback.
You're looking a bit heavy, Callum.
Wait, that?
Oh, you've come in to start our hair.
This is Transfer Insiders with Chris Latcham and Rory Jennings. We bring you the latest on Eberechi Eze to Arsenal and whether that's a good signing for the club. We'll discuss Rory's beloved Chelsea and how their transfer business is going. João Pedro from Brighton is edging ever closer. Manchester City look to be getting back to their best. And Ollie Watkins, will he stay? Will he go from Aston Villa? But also, where would be a good fit for him? This is Transfer Insiders. Let's start with Eberechi Eze, shall we? talkSPORT's reporting that Arsenal have met with Eze's camp. Podcaster and Arsenal fan Harry Symeou gave us his thoughts on Eze to Arsenal.
I'm a massive fan of Eze. I think he's got that bit of flair, that bit of magic that maybe at times this Arsenal team's missing. I feel like sometimes, we've got the running power, we've got the physicality, but sometimes we just are missing that little bit of guile and technique in and around the penalty area. He's full of confidence at the moment as well, having helped Crystal Palace to the FA Cup, playing a massive part in that. He's at the stage in his career where I think it's right for him to move on, with all due respect to Crystal Palace. And I think, we've been talking a lot about a winger. It doesn't look like Gabriel Martinelli or Leandro Trossard will be leaving. We know that Bukayo Saka's got the right-hand side nailed down. So the idea of bringing in someone like Eze, who could not only play from that left-hand side at points, but could also give you an option in the more central areas as well, I think it makes a lot of sense. Mikel Arteta's always been really big on versatility. And in Eberechi Eze, you've got a player that can do the wide job if you want him to. He can play as an 8, he can play as a 10, he can play just in behind the striker. He's got that versatility about him, and I think that would appeal to Arsenal, and it will appeal, of course, to Mikel Arteta. And obviously with a release clause, obviously there's still some negotiations that would need to take place. You might want to try and trigger that release clause by making a certain payment structure or whatever. But it's not a difficult deal to do, given there is that clear figure for which Crystal Palace would be allowed to leave him. And from what we're hearing and what we're reading, I don't think Arsenal would have any issues, A, convincing him to come, and B, with the personal terms.
Rory Jennings is alongside me. Harry Symeou is absolutely sold. He's all in on Eze to Arsenal. Does feel a good fit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think Harry Symeou speaks brilliantly about Arsenal, and I think he's absolutely hit the money on the head there. I think Eberechi Eze is everything that Arsenal need. I think he would be the statement signing. He would be the representation of Arsenal's dream, Arsenal's adventure, Arsenal's ability to potentially compete for the league. I think he would be that. I think he would elevate everything at the club. I think he's that sort of player. If you think about what Eberechi Eze has done over the past 18 months, you think about his form for England, you think about his form for Crystal Palace, you think about what he's done for Palace in their pursuit of silverware, you think about the importance that he's played for that team. Big goals, big moments. I don't see the flaw. And most importantly, and I just can't stress this enough with regard to any transfer, Premier League proven. There is no jeopardy. There is no doubt that Eberechi Eze can do it in the Premier League. There is no doubt that Eberechi Eze can handle the physicality of the Premier League, or the pace of the Premier League, or the intimidation of the Premier League. He is ready to do it at the highest level. And if you think about what it would mean to Arsenal to bring in a player that can play instead of Martinelli or alongside Martinelli, that can play with Bukayo Saka or in place of Bukayo Saka, he can elevate the entire front line. And I think he would make, if he were to say replace Martinelli, and I do think he's a better player, in fact I think he's a far better player than Martinelli, but Martinelli could use that as impetus to potentially improve himself. But I think the impact that it would have both on Arsenal's left, if he ended up playing there, but also on Arsenal's right, suddenly Bukayo Saka becomes a better player having a player like Eberechi Eze in the team. Defences can no longer double up on Bukayo Saka, focus on Bukayo Saka, because if they do, Eberechi Eze will punish them. Equally, if they try and double up on Eze, Bukayo Saka will end up in more space. I think it is actually the perfect signing. Chris, if I ask you, hypothetically even, if I were to say to you, in a realistic, so you can't play a game and say Mohamed Salah or Florian Wirtz or anyone like that, but looking at this through the lens of reality, name one player that Arsenal could sign, the perfect signing for them this summer. I potentially think the answer is Eberechi Eze. Can you think of anybody more suited that is a realistic signing?
Well, I might go down the avenue of a striker. They need a striker, and so you could pick one of two. We spoke off air, and I suggested Mateta would be one, but if they're going to go to Crystal Palace, the more realistic one is Eze. You've touched on he strengthens them not just on the left, but he also
throughout the team. Absolutely.
But if you're defending against Arsenal, you know they're going to score goals from set pieces, as they've shown. If Saka's in the team, they're going to score goals off the right. and they probably are a real threat from team goals through the centre. Not so often from the left. And if you put him in the team, all of a sudden, you've got to find yourself defending on 4 or 5 different fronts.
Yeah.
Whereas that has not been the case up to this point.
I honestly believe that Eberechi Eze, and this is something that I find quite frustrating when discussing Arsenal. People say, well, they need a striker and therefore they should be signing a striker. And there is obviously an element of truth to that. But just because Arsenal need a striker, it doesn't mean that they don't need reinforcements out wide. It doesn't mean that Mikel Arteta doesn't need options elsewhere on the pitch simply because they do need a striker. And bringing in Eberechi Eze, let's just live in a world where they don't get their striker choice over the line. Suddenly, there is a lot more goals in the team because of the arrival of Eze. Now, I'm not saying that they can get away this summer without signing a striker. But say they sign somebody who I believe isn't quite as good. Maybe they sign an Ollie Watkins there. Suddenly, that signing of Ollie Watkins has a far better complexion to it because they've got Eberechi Eze in the team as well. So I think that overall, Arsenal fans, I know they're panicked about the striker, but they've signed Zubimendi, or at least they're 95% of the way to signing Zubimendi. If they were to then marry that up with bringing in a player like Eberechi Eze, I think that they're having a very positive window.
Yeah, so double thumbs up from you on Eze to Arsenal.
I think it's flawless. I can't really think of a better signing they could make at the moment.
Okay, what about another player who can pretty much do every job in attack? João Pedro getting ever closer to Chelsea. In fact, might even be playing on Friday night in the Club World Cup for them against Palmeiras.
Yeah, this is good. This is good news.
You like this, don't you, as a big Chelsea fan?
I do. It's very rare. I mean, 90% of the time that I've spoken on this show about signings that Chelsea have made, I found them fairly underwhelming. But this one I'm totally supportive of because, again, I'm going back to it, but he's a Premier League proven goal scorer. He's a player who we know can do it in the biggest moments. There's an edge to his character. There's an element of venom to the way that he plays.
Too much of an edge? He had a falling out with one of his teammates, got banned for 2 games. He got in a fight, basically, with Jan-Paul van Hecker.
Great, good. I genuinely
like
mean that. Yeah, I do. I really do. I think that we've been a slightly weak team. I think that we've been a slightly... There's a lack of venom in our side. There's a lack of edge in our side. And it's primarily because we're young.
But historically, that was what Chelsea were. I mean, you go back to the 70s, that was there. You go back to John Terry's era, that was there.
You absolutely need it. I mean, I find the overlap show, the Stick to Football show, fascinating. But what I learned from watching that, there was an element. There was a guest, Thierry Henry, was on the show, and when he was talking about Dennis Bergkamp, like in my eyes as a football fan, I see Dennis Bergkamp only through the lens of being an artist,
silky,
a beautiful, yeah, absolutely. And then Thierry Henry was talking about Dennis Bergkamp, and he kind of said it like this. He was like, well, we all know what Dennis is like. And the implication was how filthy he was, how hateful he was on the pitch, how dirty he was. And I'm using all of these words in with their positive connotations. Now, Chelsea haven't had enough of that of late. We haven't been a dirty enough team. We haven't been a nasty enough team. We needed a Michael Essien putting in awful challenges. We needed a Ramirez putting in those challenges. We needed a Diego Costa getting people around the throat. We haven't had it enough. And João Pedro, I think he's a proven goal scorer in the Premier League. He's a Brazil international. He's young enough that he will have the value that the sporting directors like to focus on. But he's good enough that he will score goals in the Premier League, which is what I like to focus on. And ultimately, I feel like this is the signing that Chelsea need to make. And it comes with another added bonus off the back of signing Liam Delap. It may mean that I won't have to suffer the pain that is watching Nicholas Jackson play football quite so often.
Yeah, we know that you don't like him. Does he go straight into the starting team for Chelsea?
Undoubtedly. I mean, I think the only reason he wouldn't... Are we talking about maybe playing Palmeiras or whatever? I may be in that circumstance.
Well, not so much. I'm talking about your absolute go-to 11.
Yeah, when Chelsea kick off our Premier League title challenge, which I believe we should be doing. I don't think we're favourites to win it. I don't think we will win it, but I think that we should be competing for the league. I think that he is in the first 11, and I also think that if you think about the front line, Liam Delap leading the line, supported by Cole Palmer and João Pedro, I think that can give a lot of defences a lot of problems.
It also takes a bit of pressure off Delap. It won't be a Højlund situation where you're going, you're the guy, you got to get all the goals.
Exactly.
You've got options that will score goals from anywhere in that front line.
Absolutely. But I think Liam Delap is actually a player that has a lot of the attributes that we were just talking about, and I also think he's the kind of player that will relish that challenge. You know, when people talk about the poison number 9 shirt at Chelsea, it's not quite true, by the way, but people like to say that there have been an abundance of strikers.
Khalid Boularus.
He
was a number 9, wasn't he?
Khalid Boularus did play Steve Sidwell as well. But
so strange.
Yeah, but I would also say that the signing of João Pedro, I think is just a good one. We've signed a player who is Premier League proven, a Brazil international, been scoring goals since he was playing for Watford. And ultimately he will elevate our front line and give Enzo Maresca a load of options.
I did a game down at the Amex last season, sort of March time, something like that, and it was Brighton against Fulham, and it was going right to the wire. It was level in the game, and Brighton got a penalty, and there was ag in the penalty box. Everyone was on top of it, people trying to distract him. Huge delay. He just held onto the ball, calm as anything, put the ball down, finally got to take his penalty. It was the last kick of the game. His run-up was like Paul Pogba's. Remember that slow
Takes 15 seconds.
Everyone in the stadium is just like, will he, won't he, will he, won't he? Tucked it away, no fuss at all. And I just looked at it and I thought, that's a mindset. That's a mentality thing right there.
Man for the big moment.
Yeah, because a lot of players might have folded. And I know it's only Brighton against Fulham, but it's the last minute in the Premier League and he won the game.
Absolutely. I've seen him do that on multiple occasions. Scored that goal against Manchester United. Scored a great header against them. Big goal, obviously, beating Manchester United. And scored an iconic goal for Brighton when they played Marseille. They beat Marseille, almost last kick of the game as well. And he picked the ball up in the box, turned a man, beat a man, sort of won a 50-50 and lashed it home. Just a glorious goal in a glorious circumstance as well. And it led to Brighton beating Marseille. God, that's the worst sentence that's ever been said. Brighton and Hove Albion beating the great Marseille. Shows you everything that's wrong with football in one sentence.
It's one of your cult teams, isn't it, Marseille? With the same age. We go back. Chris Waddle, Jean-Pierre Papin, and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up, we're going to discuss Manchester City and Ollie Watkins. I wonder if a move would work for him this summer. Do stay with us on the Transfer Insiders. This is Transfer Insiders here on talkSPORT. Now it's time to focus on Manchester City. They're going so well at the Club World Cup. Amos Murphy from the City Ramble discussed the state of the team.
I'd say possibly everybody bar probably Erling Haaland has a position to lose. That's just kind of the squad and the ethos that Guardiola has built at City. So I don't think he's necessarily comfortable. And obviously, he's the only manager, at least domestically, that Foden's ever had in club football. So Guardiola knows what he's like, but he's like a father figure, I'm going to guess, in terms of the way he's coached him. So I think there's obviously that existing relationship. There is that acceptance that last season wasn't as good as it should have been, but there was maybe some off-the-field factors playing into it as well. I'm expecting a big season from Phil Foden. We've seen him at the Club World Cup playing with a smile on his face, and in my opinion, that's all that matters for Phil Foden. He doesn't strike me as the sort of person who's in it for the lifestyle. He strikes me as the sort of person who's in it for the maybe a bit of a cliche, but the love of the game. He genuinely does love playing football. He said it recently in an interview, which was great. So I think a confidence booster at the Club World Cup, coming back for City, and I mean, it's a World Cup year as well. He's going to have to perform, because otherwise he just isn't going to be in the England squad for the World Cup as well. So yeah, a big year for him, but I'm backing him.
Good to chat to Amos Murphy a little bit earlier. He was really pleased with the shape of Manchester City heading into this season. I mentioned to him that they hadn't had a good season. He sort of set me straight. They might not have won the league, but they got into the Champions League and going well at the Club World Cup. Interesting that they made their move so early in the transfer window, the first transfer window. They needed to, really, because they wanted to strengthen before this Club World Cup. What sort of shape are they in, do you think, heading into the new season?
I think they're in excellent shape. I think they have the best manager in the world, so they're always going to be a force to be reckoned with. They also have the history now of success. They have the winning culture that is entrenched within those players that have been part of the journey. And yeah, I think everybody should be very scared of them. I don't think they'll win the league, but I certainly wouldn't be shocked if they were to get it right. And you look at the signings that they've made, generally speaking, they look excellent, don't they? Obviously, it takes a bit of time. And Guardiola, I think you could argue that the one flaw in his game is transfer related. Like, he signed a lot of players that haven't really worked. You think of Mateus Nunes, it hasn't worked. Mateo Kovacic didn't really work. There's actually a lot of examples where he hasn't necessarily got it right. But I think Liverpool are going to be too strong. I think Liverpool will retain the title. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Manchester City were to win the league. So ultimately, I think that they are a threat, a major threat to everyone. And I feel like it will come down to, does Cherki and Marmoush get it right? Do they link up well? Does Phil Foden rediscover his former self? If the answer to those two questions is yes, they win the league.
How big a season is this for Foden?
I think it's a defining season of his career. I think it's the first time that people have been genuinely talking about the potential for Phil Foden needing a new challenge. I think people are genuinely now exploring the reality that Manchester City are a better first 11 without Phil Foden in the starting lineup. And it is now essential that he gets it right. Phil Foden hasn't really had a good game for a year. I'm talking about a calendar year. I think today is actually...
Came off the back of the best year of his career, though.
Came off the back of the best year of his career, but he then had a Euros that was atrocious. And I went to a lot of games in Germany. I was out there supporting England at 3 of the 7 games. And before every game, wherever I watched it, whatever question was put to me, how do England beat Slovakia? My answer was, Phil Foden comes alive today. Whatever was going on, how will England overcome the Dutch? Phil Foden will come alive today. Will England beat Spain in the final? Yes, we will, because Phil Foden will come alive today. That was what I was saying. I believed in Phil Foden. I thought he was a sensational footballer. The season that he had was comparable to the very best individual seasons that we'd seen. And, I thought that he had it in him to drive England to glory. And then off the back of that woeful tournament, it was the most forgettable season that he has ever had. So if we are in this situation in 12 months' time, Pep Guardiola is not an emotional man. He will get rid of Phil Foden. We've seen him do it with, all due respect to Foden, we've seen him do it with better players than Foden. We've seen him get rid of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. We've seen him get rid of Samuel Eto'o. So there is no way that he will not get rid of Phil Foden if he feels that is the right thing for the future of Manchester City.
Which of those new signings excites you the most?
I like Cherki. I think he looks great. I think the way that he plays football in the way that I will always like. I will always warm to players who are expressive on the ball.
Fun.
Yeah, expressive. The only thing that I would say is slightly tricky, maybe. We know that there are players who have that skill set, but over the years, Pep Guardiola has coached that out of a lot of players. He hasn't necessarily allowed that natural ingenuity to thrive in footballers. Phil Foden has that, and he's definitely coached it out of him. Jack Grealish had that, certainly at Aston Villa, and he's had that coached out of him. So maybe we will see Cherki become, and it would be horrible to see, he might become a winner. He might win outrageous amounts of silverware. But I think it would be a shame to football if Cherki were to become a system footballer rather than...
There is one that goes against that, is Jeremy Doku. Because it seems to me that he's one player that, although he doesn't get the game time that he would like, Guardiola is saying to him, run at him.
Yes, he is.
But only off the bench, mainly.
Yeah, only off the bench. And for how long? I don't like... I don't know. How highly do you rate Jeremy Doku?
I think he's... Pep said something late last season. He said over the first 5-10 yards, he's the the best winger in the world, the best footballer in the world, because he is rapid. And if he's getting at any fullback, they cannot stop him.
Yeah.
But Pep also, last season didn't seem to trust him from the start against players with 100% fitness who have just done their warm-up ready to go. He tended to trust him from 60, 70 minutes where there's a bit of fatigue and go, right, Jeremy, now get at them. So will he trust him? I think he's excellent, exciting, but you've already touched on the fact that maybe he's not quite a system footballer.
Yeah, and look, there is a world. This is Pep Guardiola at Man City. This is his, 4.0? This is his fourth team that he's built. And there is a world, we've seen him totally remodel his team. We've seen him totally remodel his own philosophy at points. So there is a chance that he will do something different next year, and it could involve Doku and Cherki being as expressive as possible. Remember, at one point under Pep Guardiola, they didn't even have a centre-forward. Then they went for the most iconic, archetypal centre-forward that there is in Erling Haaland. So he does involve Guardiola.
Sorry to talk over you. The way that PSG won the Champions League, absolutely trouncing Inter Milan in that final, and they played it with expression and fun and joy. I wonder if that was a moment where football slightly pivots.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the games that we saw there were a lesson to the Premier League in what was overall a fairly flat Premier League season. Like that Inter Milan-Barcelona game was just one for the ages. Possibly the best game I've ever seen in knockout tournament football that didn't involve my own team. Like I remember watching that game just like totally transfixed. I didn't know what was going on. It was like entertainment at the highest value. And then obviously the final will go down in history and is the biggest goal margin that we've ever seen in a final.
They were incredible. Absolutely incredible.
So yeah, I think that there could be something in it for Guardiola. And he is certainly clever enough and capable of redefining his team. But big season for Foden, big season for Doku, because we've seen City now bringing in a lot of players and there is no room for emotion. This time next year, if Foden hasn't had a good season, we will be talking about him going to Tottenham.
Okay. We'll end the show talking about Ollie Watkins. So, scores goals regularly for Aston Villa. Has been at times not their preferred striker. John Duran was keeping him out of the team. Marcus Rashford was keeping him out of the team. But he's constantly linked with moves away. What does the future hold for Ollie Watkins?
Yeah, do you know why he's linked with moves away? It's because the position that he plays now is such a precious commodity that they don't exist. It's not that he is good enough to lead the line for a club like Arsenal or Manchester United or wherever we're talking. It's not that he is that. It's just that he is so rare because strikers, when I was a kid growing up, they were everywhere.
Fowler, Sheringham,
Ferdinand, Andy
Ian
Cole,
Wright.
Dwight York. They were literally everywhere. Whereas now that doesn't seem to be the case. They're a very precious commodity. And therefore people get desperate and they need a striker. And Ollie Watkins is somebody who is that. But ultimately, he isn't. I don't rate Ollie Watkins particularly highly. I say this with only respect. I think he's a really, really good Premier League footballer. But that's it. He isn't. People start talking about him for England and things like that. Like, ultimately, he's incomparable to Harry Kane. Like, they don't play the same sport. And
but could he do a job at that next level up?
No.
Champions League with Arsenal?
No, absolutely not. If Arsenal were to sign Ollie Watkins, I would see that as almost waving the white flag. I would see that as submission. I would see that as such a genuine expression of a lack of ambition. Arsenal are a team that they've built a team and they're being linked with Rodrigo, who would be a great signing for them. They're being linked with Eberechi Eze, who would be a great signing for them. They are capable of winning the Premier League. Do you know who would be over the moon with Arsenal signing Ollie Watkins? Arne Slot. Arne Slot would be over the moon because it would be the normalising of mediocrity at Arsenal alongside that Norgard signing.
What if Eze came in adding a threat? We've already talked about that. He adds goals even if they didn't sign a centre forward. You said, but what if they sign him and then Ollie Watkins?
I just think that Ollie Watkins, in terms of what he is capable of doing, isn't going to petrify defenders. He isn't going to score. You know when they go away to the Etihad and they desperately need a victory, Ollie Watkins isn't going to get it for them. He may score 12 goals next season for them, but they're 12 goals that they will already have. There's loads of goals in that Arsenal team already. They're not struggling for goals. They're struggling for quality goals. They're struggling for quality goals away from home in Europe. They're struggling for that's the goals that they need. They're trying to sign a player that can be the difference when it really matters. In terms of who can score goals for Arsenal, Arsenal probably have half a dozen players that can score a dozen goals a season for them. That's not what they're after. They're after that bagsman that does it when the chips are down, when the player that snatches a victory from the jaws of defeat. You know, think about the players that have done that over the years. Do you remember when Michael Owen won Liverpool the FA Cup? He just went, nah, in Cardiff. He was just like, nah, this isn't happening. Yeah, that kind of striker. That kind of striker that just says no. What Didier Drogba did for Chelsea and Munich. What Thierry Henry did for Arsenal when they went away to the Bernabeu. They need that striker. They're not looking for a good centre forward. They're looking for an elite difference maker. Okay. Somebody to move the needle.
And Ollie Watkins does not move your needle. That is it from us, Rory. Absolute pleasure.
An honour.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Good debut on the show. Don't forget, you can listen to the Transfer Insiders podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Up next, it's the Sports Bar with Jamie O'Hara. I think the O in his name stands for Oasis. And Jason Cundy, and you can get involved too. 03717 22 3344. Up next, Sports Bar. It's those two, O'Hara and Cundy.